سلام كبرات خاطرتي انكم عبد حنا مدمنا مصاهم لو معالتي كندا فدرال إلكشن يزلو ازي فدرال إلكشن كا حدش برايم مينستر نا كندا كمرصي مالتيو سلازي نزي مدبزي انكم عبد حنا مدمنا اريتا تيستي قبرالو نزي مدبنا لايف كنكاتلو اينا حدش برايم مينستر نا كندا كتاب زمرص مالتيو اگداسي كون كلو نت مدب ريتونا خنهبينا كبرات خاطرتي انكم عبد حنا مدمنا مصاهم حجي بقطع نكتاتل
to the crowd. There's an MC asking them all sorts of questions about, how did your campaign go and what do you think of Nicolas Blanchet's messages, and they're just sort of trying to hold on to hope at this point.
Okay, Rafi Bouchikanian, thank you so much from Montreal. We will be
Live
back to you, of course.
cup
Perhaps we can show a bit
اتمدب لايف كاب
Quebec change.
CNN
Let me know
ina
if we can
Conrio
go into that.
no
But
CTV
I'll
na
go
Conrio
to, Chantal
CTV
from
Canada
Nicolas
Broadcasting
Blanchet. This is his third election, if I'm not mistaken.
CBC
Yes,
CBC
and
Canada
probably
Broadcasting Services
is feeling,
Center
better
yeah
his fate to what
ኣብ ሰዓት
could
እኮ
become
ሊበራል
a
መሪሖም ኣሎ
political
ግን
I don't think anyone at this point
ከመይ ክኸውን
can
ይንፈልጥና
challenge the leadership of Yves-François
ለውጥ
Blanchet.
ክመፅእ ክመፅእ
A lot of
ወይ
people
ከም ዘላታ
who were
ክትቅፅላ
in
እዛ
campaign
ዘላታ
were
ማለት እዩ
saying, well, they're going to hand their
ወይ
vote
ድማ
to the
ሓድሽ
Liberals
መንግስቲ ክመፀና
because of special
I hope كلكم
circumstances,
ተሳቲፍኩም
but it wasn't a judgment on the
መሪፅኩም
choice
ክትኮኑ
they were making.
ናተይ
Now,
ስታይ
that being
I hope
said, what also created this dynamics in Quebec in particular.
እስኪ ኣብ ካልእ rebel news ውን እዮም ዘሎ ናይ rebel news style biased ኮነ ኢፎይ እዮም ዝሓሽር ኣለዉ
So well, but because Pierre Poilievre, we don't want him. So we are going to build a wall by voting for the bloc. And of course, that wall crumbled the second that
እዚ
Justin Trudeau
election
that
እዚ
left
ኣብ
and the
መንጎ
polls showed that
እዚ election እዚ ኣብ መንጎ ብቐንዱ መራሒ ክኸውን ዝኽእል ዝብልዎ እንታይ ወይ ማርክ ካርኒ ክኸውን ወይ ድማ ናይ ኮንሰርቫቲቭ መራሒ ፒየር ፖሊየቭ ግን ካናዳ መብዛሕትኡ ግዜ ሰለስተ ግዜ ሊበራል መሪፃ ሰለስተ ግዜ ሊበራል መራሒ መጀመርታ ጃስን ትሩዶ ተመሪፁ ደጊሙ ሳልሳይ ግዜ ክምረፅ ከሎ ከዓ ብፀቢብ እዩ ሳልሳይ ተመሪፁ ብማይኖሪቲ ጋቨርንመንት ምስ ናይ ኤንዲፒ ተሓዊሶም እዮም ጋቨርንመንት ፈጢሮም ነይሮም ኣብ ሰዓት ዝግን my goodness ኩሉ ሰብ ፅበይ አይደሉ ከመይ ክኸውን ብፍላይ ማርክ ካርኒ ቅድሚ ሕጂ ፖለቲከኛ ኣይኮነ ቢዝነስማን you know economic advisor ነይሩ ናይ government of ናይ bank of england governor ነይሩ so በሊሕ እዩ ቢዝነስማን እዩ زم حدش تأتوا لكم من قاعد دحين متاخم سلام لومي كو يكون last day how can you say oh it's today is live today كمرت prime minister oh yeah today you I don't know they سمعهم كو يتخونوا today is the last day that's why كل سبت ريورد لهم special coverage
where the liberals are at this stage to support the reason why
April 28th
and to show why
I don't know why سمع كيوت زينا لومي so ديمولتكم تخونوا
show you something here this is Terra Nova and the peninsulas this has been a conservative seat throughout the night
حابرنا نكاتل أقدر تكون ناتيري تخبي مدقام كي كنت زرباي
This has been happening in a lot of the ridings in Atlantic Canada where the advance vote is being counted late and where the Liberals did a really good job of getting their vote in early over that Easter weekend.
By the way, كتفولتوا CBC ناي liberal funded. That's why كله تسمعوا نعوم دا دقفة. Anyway, زينا هو من دخل دقيزة نحد دا دقفة. خلنا تدري مولكا نقوم يوم. That's why CBC تريوم دوزك ذا بايس يوم. مارك كارني $150 مليون budget كسل على من CBC. Pierre Poilievre كات budget كالو من CBC. جدا سواي تريوم دولهم more كزارو هلو أب ناب liberals دوغوفيا.
Seats that they held as the 32 in Atlantic Canada, they're back at 24 with a chance, if Terra Nova flips, to get it to that 25 that we talked about on the path to majority earlier. So, still a chance for them to hit the threshold here. We'll go into Quebec, where the last I checked, because the numbers are changing soon, they were at 42 seats. They're now at 44. 4 seats in Quebec, 13 of them pickups. And look at this. We're still waiting for a little bit of data on the island of Montreal, only really in one riding. There is a conservative leading on the island of Montreal right now in the riding of Mount Royal. So we'll have to see where that goes. But either way,
ብዙሕ ክዛረብኒ ምክንያቱ ሓቢርና ክንሪኦ ንኽእል ርዱ ኢዚ ኣገዳሲ ትኾኑ ሕተት ኣለኩም ኣብ ኮመንት ሓቲትኩም ግን ኣብ ክምልሰልኩም ኩላትኩም እንኳ ኣብ ድሓን መጽሓፍ ዘለኹም እንኳ ድሓን ጸናሕኩም ላይፍ ካብ ዲኣት ኮነው ይሕገር ነይረ ሕጂ ግን እዚ ኣገዳሲ ጉዳይ እዚኣ ወሳኒት እያ ምክንያቱ ለውጥ እንደለና ኣነ ነው ኣነ ለውጥ እንደለ ኮይኑ ስማዓኒ ብፍላይ እዚ ናይ ስራሕ ኩነታት ለይሰ ብስራሕ ሲኢኑ ዘሎ I know مبزحتكم تقاتلتي كأفريقيا سوزكم كم كل خستاي مسلكم مسيكلا قالتوا له ولا بكومنت حفلي وسيكون أنت حق جن قرب سب شكير والله anyway لأن زمركم حطتوا هم يلهم بول شو بعلنا هم لهم زمركم كا بس حماق مزرعة فوتون إرتوين ولا تسكن خلنا نحلن نحلن لنا شو بيا خنا ده تقول لكن سرح زحلو ليه خاين حماق خنا دايما I know كليب كيف ممكن
are going to go liberal. So you can bear that in mind as a reason why we have not yet ruled out the possibility of a liberal majority government. In Manitoba, we had set the threshold at 6 for them to be on the path for majority. They're right at 6 right now.
من مرة حل ربولكم أبسعد زي ليبرال 250 حدا حزمالو conservative 230 227 دبت حقديمو يعود ساعة كنت النمبر تغيري we're waiting like كم زي بجزء دونالد ترامب تذكره دونالد ترامب قعوتي فوقه بقى دد سمعك يا دونالد ترامب قعوتي بقى خمسة يخو مو قيلو هايب قبرونيرو I mean كامالا هارس قعوتي أبلونيرو كامالا هارس قعوتي قليلهم هايب قبرونيرو نتسبسي كامالا بلونيرو لك كم زبزة عكس قاتم زلا مالتي جو بايدن تودي ومسلشوم زخ إلا لو ميلو كل سنة نديرو خلص كيرو مش بكامالا شو قز كيرو سيج انت بارتي سومي أبز خافو ميقاتيو سب جاسون تردو كغير اللو طلينا مسبلا جاسون تردو إلي أبيلوم ماركار نمسيوم قز كيروم حارة قز كيروم شو لو تلالكم لو تريكو نقل I don't know حجي نتبين عزلنا نايو حق لو تخمت دخل new government خمت كله دغنا جن إذا خلوا كله حج قدم conservative فروت مالك هيكون يقارب لي تاي حلو دلايكم مرزو تراي مرزو تراي ستناتكم مثل exercise بقولوا تلامو دوزي vote the war سبحان الله عدنا مستملسنا أم حداري ناس مرخوني أنا ناي تايد بحال ناي transport ناي جراجين كبابيو أنا أم حدار خون مدبالني قم مدبالن تمرجكم دي مالتي كان حجين practice جوارو نتاع سيرفيس أبشر شو حنتر مسانا فرينو خون قلت غيرو خونكم أبشر شو حزيت بنتاع غيركم كلا سيرفيس نات قلت خونكم مالتي سلازي yeah anyway now election نملس
Was there a joke there that I missed that I was supposed to?
Yeah, I was talking about deltas, you know, like sort of.
By the way, كتري وقول لكم أي طريقهم ناي liberal مالتيو شميع طريقهم ناي conservative and then Quebec block purple is that purple I think light blue NDP شو منته NDP أبسعد بتعمل كسيرو السوق مبزحته أبزعد زغمت سب election ده اللي يخبل كله NDP أم حق زوم منيرهم liberal government سلازي NDP وحرس باي مرتون قال وحرس سيتالون NDP بقندو انتهى يوم دبلو free health care بحالتي عب health care عب تناي seniors كلا so تسموه free health care أحسونه عسبت عاد بتلفان health care جن anyway حكمنا ممكن تخم تفضل يا خمال زعل I know بعد غنيك تايتالو تريستي والله
percentage points and who is down well no surprise the NDP almost 16 percentage points and in some of the ridings you can see the impact of that. Let's take a look at Kelowna. Kelowna is really interesting because if you look at what happened to the NDP support there at least as of right now it was 18% in 2021 it's down to 2.7% and it seems to be going
انتي مسلكم انا يدو واتانو هون سمعكم مالت دمزت متيا زنقس نجيسو نعنا تتصلوا انت يمسلكم ابلوط ابصراح بفلا ابصراح ግን كل خيط أسق إلى أنا بغند قلنا أنا بعيني كابزر أقوب زعد حنت خاطر تسقيماتنا زلان كلاتنا حبرة السبب زعد الصراحة سب خون صراحة ليه كل نتأنى تالو مقصقات نتأ كل لك كان نتأنى تالك قال لك تلاك كبتلها فري كانتري صراحة كنت سبسيم أبصراحة مزعتها أتاكس هاي أتبقون دو بنسب شجيرو الله صراحة مسألة كل هاي كوين كل إكسبنسيف كوين نقع جي صراحة فترة عدة ترغيبو زناقة سنقص بعد تعمين إيش هنا الله صراحة مسألة
We haven't been here since yesterday, to be fair.
What time conservative day حايش no comment يقدر نبرر له guys إذا تحت نزول لكم بزعبة أم حدار أنا أم حدار تقولين وقاسمكم يهون بفضل أبناء مينستر ترانسبورت تجيركم حدا كان لو تقول لكم إن نايم خاين تمرتخب بزعبة ماكينة هاي ملكات تكير تجبر من بدكم تقول له خفولتوا تريوم ولا قالكم نايم ماكينة هاي ملكات سيرفيس تجبر تقول لكم بتبينا جير حنشال كوتسي بإنجليش حنشال كوتسي بوست تجبره بدلاكم قام مالتي نقط فولتوا تريلي تكنيشاني بلوكم من دخل الجزء نمفسح يكونه جن تمرت سزوسات كله يردأني تي ثيوري مالتي ببراكتيكال بصحة الله يفتح نفعت ميكانيكات جن وجه ما يمهرون يوم علم وجه مراكمة نزيات لو تخونكم كا تاچانل لينك تحت قبلكم نبذا فيديو مستودات مالتي أو سبسكرايب كم تدخليكم كمون أبدا channelي قال لكم ريهم تدخلوا سزولهم سبسكرايب قبروا وزي هذا مسألكم دول لكم بزعبة كندا ناي مكينة تمرتي أبزح حلفة سحنت فيديو تاني رب بزعبة مكينة إلى نخفلتو بزح في أي قبركم because I know نقال يدقدسوا سبالة نقال يقول تزينات عدل سبالة but مثلا more video نخسرح كله chance سرح له أبا subscribe قبروا لينك تحت قبلكم
but it's getting a little
anyway
harder.
نابزينا نملس
And they're going to have to work a lot harder in these other ridings and these counts in order to make it.
I
Let's go
hope
to Adrian now, who has some results.
إيش بزعبة election كذا
The Liberals want to flip. Let's look at some of those. Let's start with Kitchener Centre. You are not seeing green on the bar at the bottom because Mike Morris is trailing by 33. Just 3 out of 213 polls reporting. That's the very thing Rosie's been talking about. Let's look at another one, Hamilton Centre. Again, the NDP wanted to hang on to that. Liberals are leading with 55, just 55.
guys comment
That is Niagara South, and that is a riding that would have flipped to the Conservatives in redistribution. The Liberals are holding it with just 22. Only one poll reporting there, Rosie.
Okay, so some of those early results you're seeing, some of those tight places. Oh, I think you've got one more elected here.
Well, look at that, and that's a big one to miss. That is Leslie Church, projected elected in Toronto St. Paul's. That was a rematch against Don Stewart. That lead, 1,840. She lost that by 647 votes in that by-election that started everything that's happening right now.
بس عايز حد نقرأكم ستوري ناخده كله مالتي صبوا أنقوا عدم تسمع هلو كم سوى زلهم أب كندا نت برايم مينستر كتاك مكان تمرت أجي مارك كارني جولي لوز من ليبرال غفرمنت مالتي كومون كون كونسرفاتيف بارتي قا بيير بولييف مالتي نز بارتي زخمرست هون كان مجمرت عن من هات مرت أب كبابي خازلو ممبر أوف بارلمنت هات مرت That's why أبي election مسكركم أبز خبابنا سيد أحمد الله قال له بزحت له ناي ليبرال بارتي ناي بارتي إخاتدلي إخاتمرت زبازحة member سيت حازقة prime minister كويني واتسا انتقال يقول أبز حالة في فيديو قليس عيني رأي conservative تحقوا بريء ميلهم liberal تحقوا بريء ميلهم هجي بغميت مورتو نعكم دو واتساب نفاميلكم تقنوكم مصدر خاسي زي واتساني مس فاميلنا مصدراي نعي يتقمني دي بالكاي خاتمرت ترديكم مني زواتسان then finally بدرجة تزمرت حانت حقر خوني نقولنا خوني جن when you vote يزوات عاك لو تصل متيتو رابع جزء من رتبه اليوم liberal government
The expectation would be that Pierre Poilievre would win, but there was some concern expressed about how that long ballot initiative, which is a protest movement to try and protest the first past the post system that we have.
Guys.
Obviously, Elections Canada has been counting those ballots for a very long time. They got special dispensation to start much earlier in the day. Oh, David's got a long ballot with him.
Rosie,
of course you have a prop.
Because we have an arts and craft division at Power
and
Politics, we had a replica. This is the ballot you're dealing with.
Yeah.
In Carlton, right? This is what the longest ballot. This is what 91 names look like, right? And you gotta do this to kind of find Pierre Poilievre. He's right there, by the way, on the ballot. Bruce Fanjoy, the Liberal, is right there on the ballot. But just look at the sheer girth of this thing. right? Just look at this, 91 names. So you got to get this, you got to write it, you got to fold it up, they got to stuff it into, I don't know, a mail box as opposed to a ballot box. And there were 43,000 of these cast in the advance vote, right? So that's already in there in the system. That's why they got that special dispensation to go early. So while we may know that the Liberals are going to form government, we don't yet know whether it's going to be a majority government or not. Those by-elections that we were talking about, this happened in Toronto, St. Paul. We hosted a by-election special.
كمزي إزيهم زلوا زلوا ليبرال كم تمرت أجريهم دزار بدلوا already I don't know man I don't know it's tricky.
That's a challenge we're up against.
I do have to say that those numbers that we saw there with a Liberal advantage, it's because the advance polls were counted first for that riding. So let's not, no one's going to suggest here that that's the direction this is going to take. Arif, you wanted to say something there?
Well, I think it's interesting. You showed that photo of the folks in the conservative room. The concern that I have is actually what it's going to look like that first conservative caucus meeting. What I'm getting at, Rosemary, is that the expectations were quite large on the part of Pierre Poilievre's caucus that he would deliver them into government, minority or majority, but he would deliver them into government.
By the way, كلاتكم تحت نزولكم نسخان من مريض كادو والكمني. أنا جرّكم يا أورادي من مريض. نمتى مريض أون حبيرني رأي. أنت خوانا جن حاجة نسبت الواخونا دلني أنا. سب ناتو ترديو إزاي واتس عني زبالكم مريض الله. إنت أيديا أنت هاي دولانة. كنت مورتكم دولكم تأخذ زارب الله أنا. Negative. That's why live votes able to desirable below.
Conservatives' results from the last vote, which was 128 with redistribution. He's at 133, 134 here. I don't know. It's possible that some people will want to let him holds him to a minority. I don't know. I'm just saying. Andrew, you went in, and then I got to go to Catherine here.
It's one thing to measure the drives, it's another thing to measure the coffee. It's maybe a little early for that. I think it will depend in part on whether it's a majority or minority.
Totally.
I think you absolutely are right that if he comes out of this with 40% of the
vote,
he would have bettered Stephen Harper. The other question is,
Meeton. سبعان كلتن سيت زحزة majority يحز. That's why يدك ألوس زلوا. That's why يدقوا يدلوا. سيت وانا نجار مالتي. So نهلو يقول يلو. I don't know. Liberals كعوة كل يوم هجو.
Yeah, let's talk about it after. I do want to spend time. We're not going to write off anyone because we're not at that stage in the evening at all. Catherine Cullen, apparently you have a guest.
Yes, and first we're going to just talk a little bit about what is going on in Quebec before we get to Vanessa Lee, our colleague on the island of Montreal. Let's start by taking a look at what is going on in LaSalle. Emard Verdun. Oh, perhaps. In fact, we are going to go to Vanessa Lee right away. Let's just get to the good stuff. And there you are, Vanessa Lee, on the island of Montreal. I believe you are with some prominent Liberals. Tell us what's going on.
By the way, زينتهم أبكارات ترايز غير السنة. بزعوا خالد بدوستهم زينكم يعمل كتن. زين نزوم أبزعنا مدلنا. ترايد ملكات. وين كانت متصلهم ولا تحواتنا زي أقداسيو ما تب دمت government دوم صلوتي وسني.
For Parks Canada as well as Canadian culture and identity. Mr. Guilbeault, congratulations on your party's win. How are you? What's going through your mind right now? Because your riding is still too close to call.
Yes, I think things are looking very well in the riding, but as you rightly say, it's too close to call yet, or it's very early. I think our numbers are very good, but very early. We're very grateful that Canadians have decided to give us another mandate, and we feel honored, and we will work hard for Canadians.
Liberal Party comes out in the Zara Woodallo.
We have tough days ahead, certainly with the U.S. administration and President Trump. We know it's going to be complicated, so the stronger the Canadian government can be, the more united we are, the easiest it's going to be to face President Trump.
What do you think made the difference in this election that Canadians have voted for another Liberal government? And how confident are you that it will be a majority government?
Well, clearly the numerous attacks by President Trump on the Canadian economy, but not just the economy, on our sovereignty and our very identity.
Mark Carney, لو تغمس لي عمسني بحجنا هالرئي مالت زيك هنا يبلغكم أنا we don't know مالت سي تزبوله بوليسي زبوله بوليتيكانيا قد من مملاسو زياد قبر يبدي مستمر تأجل كجبرني أرنا عين فلتنا وبزخون إن دمت أنت هذا نقصنا نقصنا أنا هنبل أبساعد هنا هنقول زلنا بزعبا كميلنا مويا وسيدنا لنا ثمرت وسيدنا لنا صرحنا عطل نخل نيوتنا غير زخل أمبر كن كاتوليك ديتاي من تقمتنا إذا عدك صار بخونا لو تخد لنا نعنا مالتي كم دك سبعة كون نيوجن نحنا نمسك نقبرنا ورسا بيفتن بعومه كون نيوجن تزمت كافرج ليبرال بارتي كان سوشيال سيستم يوم بنفيت بوزي حمدوتو
And you can see there at the bottom of your screen, we
نقول لنا يا أخي تسلم يقولون سيدا أجوك ما يسكوف
Mark Carney will be leading as the 24th Prime Minister. 162 seats leading and elected for the Liberals, 138 for the Conservatives, 24 for the Bloc, 10 leading or elected for, I think they're just leading, but maybe leading and elected for the NDP. You need 12 to form official party status. The Greens, oh, look, they just popped up. It seems like every time I mention them, they just appear. Leading and elected in one. Remember that the
أب ساعات زي كم مسقول صازلا Liberal Party مرحل له 207 كلتن 6 حزام كذا تصير government يقول majority government أتك عندي نزل دفع فوز الله خا نزل دونالد ترامب تعريف مالتيو كندا تعريف دونالد ترامب مبل 50 حدا ستيت كتكون مسبله بزح حسابي تلاعب نديدو مالتي كميلنا لولاونتني حنت حفرتن كيف مالتي امبر نجاسن تروص اليوم يم نيرو زمان توديو من نيرو دحار ግን ማርክ ካርኒ ናሽናሊዝም አላ አይዱ just good
matters here. I'm just looking at our dashboard. The Liberals are at 44.7%, the Conservatives at 40.6%. And I would just note that you know, these numbers are so big, right? They are so big compared to what you would normally see in an election. 2015, for instance, Justin Trudeau won his majority with 39.47% of the popular vote. That is, I guess, just because we're in this two-party race. Is that how I should read that, Chantal?
44% ناي ليبرال 4% conservative شوعات بلوك NDP 4% NDP وريقون NDP وريقون كثيرون
pushing theirs up,
raising the numbers for the Conservatives. But having said that, yes, it is both numbers are way too high for the kind, and that's why when you look at the seats and the possibility of a majority government, it's really hard to have a minority government if you
مريسكم دوزما تحتكاتل زلهم اسكادمو رأسكم أولكم صحافو
yes the bloc looks like it's going to get
23-24 seats
but still we're used to parliaments where means many parties that have an official party status and at this point that's not where we're going tonight. So I'm curious to see how the night unfolds. I notice there are still loads of places where the vote is barely being counted.
Yes, there are probably half a dozen places where, no, 2 dozen places where it has barely been counted. Remembering here that 16 produced minority governments, right?
كم سمعون دلو جن كسب أوكي دان دبلو جن أين فلته
I don't really believe there are loads of new Democrat votes hidden in those uncounted votes.
No, we might get to 4. Does that concern anyone that there is fewer less representation of parties inside the House of Commons in terms of what that means for democracy, Andrew?
I don't think on its own. I mean, again, you get into the issue of how representative is the popular vote in that regard. How well represented is it in terms of the number of seats?
Yeah.
But ultimately, the electorate is going to decide whether they want to have a multiplicity of parties or maybe in the present circumstances. That's the question is this a one-off or does this represent a greater degree of change? We've seen the NDP written off before they came back. We've seen the Liberals written off
before. The Bloc too,
We've seen the Bloc. So these are enduring brands and you know, the wheel goes full circle and they may come back.
Chantal, then Althea.
On the NDP, they went from no official party status in 93 to a decade or two later, I admit, but they still, at some point, they had presence across the country, from Atlantic Canada to BC, including Quebec. So that possibility is still there. Do not
كلهم لوط
assume
كم يغيدالو
that a victory for the
قراريبهم
Liberals
الله
tonight is necessarily
أنا لوط
a
ندلنا ما
Liberal
نخمر
reign
رسلنا
for
I don't
all
know
times.
No.
At some point, the seas
كلهم
of
still
change will
uncertain
come
whether
back and they
Mark Carney
might
will
have a
lead the
better chance to
majority
bloom.
or minority
Liberals
government.
shouldn't assume that either. Andrew and then Althea.
But one thing I think we should be looking for is not just will they get over the majority, will BC put them over the top, but also how will the Liberals do in Western Canada? One of the things people have been very worried about, some people, is will another Liberal victory cause Westerners, and some Westerners anyway, to give up on Canada? I should note that the numbers coming in BC and Alberta are looking pretty close to what the polling numbers were suggesting, and the polling numbers are saying the Liberals are going to do better, at least in the popular vote in those provinces, better than they have since 1968. So that should hopefully dampen down some of the sort of attempts to portray this as the West being shut out yet again.
We'll see.
We'll see.
To you, Althea.
Just a few things. So on that is something that the Liberals were quite concerned about. Which
كم يقير على numbers بعرف إندي votes حجي يمتسأل which means county فقد ولا حجي that's why يمتسأله لو تيقير على but again final دمتس شعر تزارب خل كمية وقير خلي بزح لو تحقق مفعلي.
If there are no parties, smaller parties in the House, I think it's just if the balance of power is the Bloc Québécois, it is an opening for the Conservatives to say that it's an illegitimate coalition, much like they did in 2008, which basically means that we will have another election.
But it's not a coalition. It's just one party helps another, right?
Right. But they framed the last supply and confidence agreement as a coalition.
Agreement
of course not. They will do issue by issue as they have always communicated. That will not.
Minority government ኮይኖም ተመሪጾም liberal government ከመይ ክኸውን ዝብል ሕቶ ብሎክ የበኳ ክሕግዝዎም ከም ዝኽእሉ እያ ትዛረብ ዘላ
of policy areas where they could get together. I don't see the personalities leading to cooperation in the House of Commons, which basically just means
so I what percentage معرخ نيتلاقي 4%
either later this year or next year.
But at that level, if the NDP doesn't even need official party status, it can have a share of the balance of power. Let's agree that we are not yet in those scenarios where the Bloc was going to become the official opposition, and then I was going to hold a knife to the throat of the government. That's not what's happening.
No,
I got to get to David Cochrane here. He's got some stuff from the 905.
Well, look, this is part of the reason why we are where we are. You see the Liberal number actually retreating a little bit. Right now, they are only at 65 seats in Ontario. They are down 10, down 11, and we're going to look at the Greater Toronto area, and this gives you a sense of where we are right now. So you can see here, a Mississauga is blue, a Brampton is blue, another Brampton is blue. So Peel region has been breached by the Conservatives at this point in time, as we were saying earlier.
دبل كذا بعد تورونتو تاريخهم تورونتو ميسيساغا بعد لندن اليوم naturally liberals مرتو بوتاتاتهم نيرهم حجي كنت منسي تودي إخو جزا إيكاله جزاسي فرق مليون بتشيو بعد تورونتو مليون جلا نجزا بوكس تسرح جزا مليون بتشيو صوت سب كميل أنا جزا كلني كله housing كبير له ناب conservative شجرالو okay the benefit قال yeah of course يكات عكا أنت هون قد housing afford قبل يدخل تهونكا كمان نسي سرح جزا كزي يدخل تهونكا then what's the point
election day, and you are seeing that also up in the York region, which is what the Liberals were the most worried about in their seats in Ontario. But an interesting thing developing as well here in southwestern Ontario, because look, the Conservative number is 144. Like, that's way up for Pierre Poilievre. Like, that is a big increase in the seats, at least at this point in the night. In the NDP from Hamilton to London to Windsor right now, those are blue. The conventional wisdom was the collapse of the NDP vote would elect Liberals. But
guys,
the Liberals and the NDP both are strong second and third, the Conservatives could come out the middle. That may be what is happening in those areas. And just going back to the GTA, I know this was a concern up in the York region here, was that the NDP vote dropping would help the Liberals run up the score in the downtown Toronto core where they're going to win just by larger margins. But there were not really any NDP vote to be gained in a lot of these 905 outer areas. And that would you would have a false sense of how viable you were in those ridings, and you would see Conservatives flip those blue. So The Liberals, still early yet in Ontario, but vote inefficiency.
Guys, إذا متكاتل زلهم حدش تتخاتلتي سبسكرايب ناقولكم شير نابولكم نزا channel متان كتعبي متان كحجزني مالتي ناب كل نخبت شير لايك سبسكرايب ناقولكم بس حتى لهم حدش تي نزا channel زيا سبسكرايب ناقولكم.
Yes, and you know, Donald Trump obviously disrupted this entire election. I mean, the U.S. president makes about $400,000 US a year. The Liberals should probably book that as a campaign expense, given the way that it's helped them throughout this thing. But, you know, until we get sort of the urban votes in mass number to know exactly how the cities of Canada are going to vote and the suburbs of Canada are going to finally vote, and, of course, British Columbia, it's hard to know if they're going to get there. But the vote efficiency that has helped the Liberals win the 2019 federal election and win the 2021 federal election, despite losing the popular vote, at this stage, we're not yet seeing that. Now, they're starting to tick back up. They're in 161 right now. Them and the New Democrats and the Greens, Rosie, that's a majority. You got a bingo right there. But, you know, that's a whole lot of work that still needs to be sorted out at this point of the night.
Okay, thank you so much for that, David Cochrane. If you're just tuning in, we have, in fact, called a Liberal government with Mark Carney as Canada's 24th Prime Minister. He also has been elected for the very first time in his life in the riding of Nepean. We are waiting to see whether it's a minority or a majority, so we're going to go to Adrian now, who's got some results, projected results, maybe that will help us get there.
Indeed. So we're looking at a projected elected, the only one that is a flip in Ontario so far. That is Toronto St. Paul's with Leslie Church. Again, the only projected elected flip for the Liberals so far in Ontario. Wouldn't it be interesting to talk to Leslie Church? Well, why don't we do that? Let's talk to Eli Glasner, who is in Toronto St. Paul's with Leslie Church. Hello, Eli.
Yeah, Adrian, so we are here in our room crammed with volunteers, and here she is, Leslie Church. Congratulations. I want to know from you that very close loss to Don Stewart back in June, and then to pick up the campaign and start again. How was it different when you started knocking on doors for now a second time?
Well, the difference was really Trump and Mark Carney. Donald Trump, I think, has really set the stakes for this election in a way that people understood at the doors. And the change of leadership. Mark Carney came in as a fresh, new, experienced leader for the Liberal Party, and I think people were looking for that too. So that really changed the playing field. And also it was more time to do the outreach that we needed, to hear from people heading into a general election as opposed to a by-election. And I think that was really important. So I'm deeply, deeply grateful for the result tonight.
You lost in the by-election to the Conservative Don Stewart, a small margin of votes of just over 600.
Let me see what's happening.
Now here you are. How are you feeling this evening?
I feel very good. I feel so grateful for the trust that the community of St. Paul's has put in me. I'm so grateful for the team. We've had just people coming out in this election in ways that I've never seen before, getting involved because of what's at stake. And so I really hope to continue that engagement as we go forward.
Mark Carney was Mark Carney, guys.
People were coming to your campaign manager when he was out putting out signs, something like 4 times the amount of requests for signs. So there really was, this time as opposed to the by-election, a bit of an uphill battle. A lot of voters talking about Justin Trudeau, not so happy, but a different atmosphere this time.
Well, look, the world has changed, and St. Paul's feels that. And so it's absolutely... And literally off the street, getting involved in their first campaign of their lives, saying this matters, this is going to be the most important election of my lifetime in Canada. And we're proud to be part of a party that is pushing a positive agenda, that wants to build a better future here, and most importantly wants to stand up for Canada in the face of Donald Trump. I mean, that was just an existential threat that really loomed over all of this election.
All right, thank you for making time for us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
There you go, Leslie Church. Here at Toronto St. Paul's, very dramatic riding, bit of a bellwether, bit of a wake-up call for the Liberals when the by-election, a big surprise when Don Stewart won just a very small margin. But as you're seeing from those results, a very dramatic difference tonight. And certainly when she came downstairs and entered, this celebration, there were loud cheers. And as we were hearing from the organizers when they were out on the street, when they were knocking on doors, the thing they were hearing again and again. It was Trump and the tariffs, and those concerns has brought this red wave back to St. Paul's. It was a red riding for many, many years, and it is red now once again.
Okay, all right, Eli Glasner, who was with Leslie Church there. That's a story of Fortress Toronto, but if you go outside Toronto, it's a different story. Let's look at what is happening in the Greater Toronto area. Used to be known as the Greater Trudeau area for the hold the Liberals had on it, but look at what's happening now. Liberals are down 9 seats, seats that they're not leading in. Conservatives are up 9.
Oh, wow.
That is not what they were hoping for. What's happening in particular ridings? So let's look at Newmarket, Aurora here. This was the second slimmest margin of victory for the Liberals. Last time they hoped they would hang on to it. They are not. Let's look at Brampton. I spent a lot of time in Brampton. Even though this is a place affected by tariffs, everybody there talked about affordability and crime. They were very nervous. That may explain some of what you're seeing here.
እንታይ ትብላላ ቀንዲ ካብቲ ንሰብ ደካትዖ ዘሎ ዋላ እኳ ንኦንታሪዮ ሓደ ካብቲ ኣታክ ዝገብራ ዘሎ ታሪፍ እዩ ሰቀር ዶናልድ ትራምፕ ኣብ ልዕሊ ካናዳ ዝገብሮ ታሪፍ እቲ ንካናዳ ቅድሚ ዶናልድ ትራምፕ ምምፅኡ ግን ካናዳ ኣፎርደብል ኣይኮነትን ዘላ ብጣዕሚ ከቢሩ ስለዚ እቲ ሰብካ እንታይ ኮይኑ ከቢሩ ንብረት ከመይላ ናብራስ ኣፎርድ ክንገብሮ ንኽእል ስራሕ ተሳኢሉ ከቢሩ ነገራት ኤክስፐንሲቭ ኮይኑ ግሮሰሪ ከቢሩ ገዛ ክራይ ከቢሩ ቢልስ ከቢሩ ዩቲሊቲ ከቢሩ ነዳዲ ከቢሩ affordable ኣይኮነን ነገራት እሱ ይተጸገም ስለዚህ እዚ መንግስቲ እዚ ነዛ affordable ክገብሩ ተዘኪሉ ቡቃዕ ኣይኮነን ክብልዮም ንጃስን ትሩድ ኣልዮም ይሕሪ መተካእቲ ማርካር ምስ መጸግን እቲ ፕሮብለም ናምታ ያስግሎም ናብ ኣሜሪካ ጸገምና ኣሜሪካ በቃ ዶናልድ ትራምፕ ታሱ አይተሰብ ዳርጋ ረስዕዎ ኩሉ አና affordable ከም ዝኾነ ማለት እዩ anyway ንጽበ majority minority ክኸውን መን ይኽዕወት
Rosie, counting is slow in a lot of the British Columbia ridings, but I do want to take a look at what the seat change looks like at this point. And keep in mind, a lot of the seats in British Columbia are not projected to be done, to be elected, but still in play. But you can see both Conservatives and Liberals up by 3 each. And that's at the expense of the NDP. Let's look at some examples of what's leading to the potential seat change. Langley Township, Fraser Heights. What's interesting to me about this is John Aldag, who used to be an MP, running again here, is how his share of the vote has just soared. It's gone from 30% in the last election in this riding to 48.3%. And so it's not coming at the expense of the Conservatives. They have almost exactly the same support right now, it's early I know, as they did in 2021. Some of it's the NDP. Their vote has collapsed from almost 20% to just 5%. Vancouver Kingsway, if you know BC politics at all or follow the NDP closely, this will be really surprising to see Don Davies, the longtime incumbent, in second place. It's only a lead of 13, but we'll keep an eye on Vancouver Kingsway. Interesting to see that result. And in Richmond Centre, again, counts pretty small. They're taking a long time to count votes in a lot of the British Columbia ridings. But you see the incumbent, Wilson Miao, in second place, and the Conservatives right now in a small, but still interesting lead. Lots of churn in these early counting moments in British Columbia.
And lots of close races too. And we'll show you a little bit more about how close some of those races are and why the numbers at the bottom of your screen are moving back and forth so dramatically. And indeed, why we have yet to be able to call what kind of government Canadians have elected here. Right now, the Liberals leading are elected in 156. Remember, it's 172 you need for a majority. Conservatives ticking up to 148, Bloc at 25, NDP at 10, and the Greens now back down to 1. That shows you, as Ian was just talking about there, a lot of churn, a lot of things still moving here, and that means that we're going to take our time to call what kind of government Canada will end up with by the end of the night. We know it will be Liberal. We don't know whether it's a minority or a majority. Catherine Cullen, you have some results.
Yeah, let's look at some places where the numbers are starting to firm up. In this case, we're going to be looking particularly at Quebec and what is happening with the Bloc vote. You can see there the vast majority of the benefit there is going to the Liberals with that one Conservative seat. But some of this is less tentative now. We're going to look at 3 examples of projected elected seats, and they're all pretty interesting, starting with LaSalle and Mard Verdun. Of course, we talked about earlier that famous by-election where the Bloc got into that Liberal stronghold? Well, no more. Claude Gay, projected elected in La Salle-Verdun. Let's move over to Châteauguay-les-Jardins de Napierville, where Patrick O'Hara lost by 12 votes last time around. This time, it is Liberal star candidate Nathalie Provost who is projected elected in that seat. And finally, in Rivière-des-Mille-Îles, the Bloc incumbent Luc Desilets will not be winning the day. Linda Lapointe projected elected in that riding. So giving you a sense, Rosie, of how some of those numbers are firming up in this case. These are not just early numbers. Now we're projecting elected.
And that really tells the story about what's happening in Quebec. The Bloc down and the Liberals picking things up there, which could help them on their road to seeing if they form a minority or a majority government. Where are we going next here? Oh, let's check in with the panel. Yes, Arif Irani.
Well, I just think...
Arif Irani put his hand up, so I should have known that's where we were going next.
Rosie, I think what's important is that sort of understanding sort of the optimism and the aspirational component of the election, right? You talked about it yourself during the course of this evening. Mark Carney was not a polished politician. I think the fact that he wasn't a polished politician actually allowed him to present himself as a fresh face to Canadian voters, but he was also very ambitious and very confident, right? Going into ridings like Saskatchewan, where we've been talking about Destinity tonight, working on his French for that French language debate, showing that optimism that we could maybe take seats on Vancouver Island. A lot remains to be determined, but I think that optimism was telling, and I think that started to become a bit infectious. And as you saw, as the campaign rollout happened with the advertising, for example, he was front and center on almost everything. And then you saw Pierre Poilievre conversely sort of being resiling a bit and sometimes being replaced by Stephen Harper, which is a bit antithetical to that change narrative. You're talking about a guy who was the Prime Minister 10 years ago. So I think that's important to sort of understand in terms of what's been taking place here. And what I heard from folks in the 416, in the 905, is that that message that Carney was offering was really resonating. So I heard that from James Maloney in Etobicoke Lakeshore. I heard that from people such as Karim Bardisi, and I will just a personal shout out to Taya Khan Park, Delhi Park. He's been declared elected. He will make an excellent successor, and that's a terrific result to see.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right to point out that issue of leaders' favorability, because that obviously may have been a factor here as well. What I'm not going to accept anymore is that he's not a politician. He's a politician. That's it. There's no going back. That's who he is for the rest of his life.
People thought he was going to run as a high-minded technocrat. I think we found he was very much a political animal. And he's been after this job for years. He was quite capable of being economical with the truth, quite capable of putting forward policies that were vaporous on observation. You know, he could play the game for good or ill.
Well, he also got good just at talking to people and doing rallies. And, well, Theo, you were out with him for a while.
He got a lot better. Like the first 2 weeks of the campaign, the difference between the last two is just astronomical. Like, he has really fine-tuned his
ሊበራል ትብሎ ሊበራል ኢልኩም ጻሓፉ ኮንሰርቫቲቭ ትደልዩካ ኮንሰርቫቲቭ ኢልኩም ጻሓፉ ንከታተሉ ኢና ዘለና
this panel or any political party, but I mean, I do think that a lot of conservatives have also pinned their hopes and dreams on Pierre Poilievre, and they feel like, just as so many progressives feel, that Mark Carney is the one to lead them out of the threat of Donald Trump. So many conservatives and new members of the Conservative Party feel that Pierre Poilievre is the person that is going to make them wealthier and reduce crime and get rid of the homeless on the streets. And you know, I do feel that there has been a lot of projection of aspirations on political leaders in this election.
And that can be dangerous. Obviously, Prime Minister Carney started with lower expectations, but I think what's really quite amazing is that learning curve and how quickly he adapts and how quickly he could pivot from being a leading banker in two different sort of states to an elected representative, because it's difficult, let alone in a different language that isn't his mother tongue. And I think the Quebec electorate has responded to that.
Chantal.
Talking about the Quebec electorate, if you look at the province that did deliver what the Liberals needed tonight, it was Quebec. Take away those 9 gains, and we are in a very different territory, the one where we never go to sleep tonight because we're still waiting to figure it out.
Well, that could still happen, let's be clear.
And what was but the feature that caused this, yes, there was the Trump factor, but it was Pierre Poilievre's lack of popularity in Quebec. If Quebecers had not been so viscerally opposed to Pierre Poilievre, the Quebec results for the Bloc would not be as bad as they are. And the Liberals would not be sitting with not a very big lead on the Conservatives seat-wise.
No, not a very big lead at all. We'll see where that goes. But if you see that kind of tight, if we're heading towards a minority and is that tight, my gosh, that's not a very stable time for anybody. David, you got some stuff you want to talk about there?
Look, Rosie, I think the political science term for that is a parliament from hell. But what's happening right now is the story's in Ontario, folks. I mean, look, the Liberals have been projected to win the most seats here tonight, but they are down in Ontario, not just below where we thought they needed to be for the path to majority. They're just flat out down. And like, let's go through some of the regions here. The NDP vote is nowhere in Ontario, but a lot of it's going Conservative. So we've seen the Conservatives moving into the Peel region here and like gaining seats in the York region. But what's also interesting is if you go to southwestern Ontario, look at this. Windsor right now is blue. London Fanshawe is blue. I believe Kitchener.
the
Green Party.
Nab Liberal Party now the Conservative mortalo. So
Look, there's no orange in Hamilton, but in Hamilton Centre, there's a Conservative in the lead right now. So this is the top line numbers, and sort of the conventional wisdom of this election has been that the NDP vote collapse would just all huddle around Mark Carney as the new Progressive Party avatar. But what you're seeing is a lot of those orange votes seem to have gone blue, or at least the orange ridings are going blue because the dynamics where red and orange are pretty strong seconds and third. And you know what? Doug Ford rode this dynamic to a majority in Ontario because you had Bonnie Crombie and Merritt Stiles kind of competitive second and third place in vote share. And we're seeing this sort of playing out in Canada's biggest province, in the key battleground of Ontario. The last numbers I had on Ontario, because it is changing back and forth, 63 Liberal is what I'm told right now. They're down 13 in Ontario right now. At 59 Conservative, they're up 18. So the Liberals are losing seats to the Conservatives in Ontario. The NDP are losing seats to the Conservatives in Ontario. And look at that. It's 154 to 152 right now. Like we're getting close to a tie. Rosie?
Okay, Althea, you went in there, and then Andrew, and then I'm going to get some more results.
Two things. One, I don't think we actually know enough at this moment because we don't know what the advanced polls are, and there was such a huge turnout for the Liberals. So I don't know, but a lot of the ridings that Mark Carney went to in the last week, like Newmarket, Aurora, King Vaughan, those are all blue at the moment, and I think a lot of the major issues there are crime, and the Liberals really did not speak to a lot of people's anxieties on that. The other thing that you're seeing in Edmonton Centre, in Windsor West, in London Fanshawe, is that the Liberals decided to go after basically NDP incumbents to get to their majority, and Progressives did not know who to vote for. We talked about this at the beginning of the show. And so these are not naturally Conservative seats at all, but the Liberal and the NDP have split the vote, and the Conservative is coming in.
Andrew, and then Arif, and then I'm going to take a...
Well, these are remarkable numbers at this point. Now, I know a lot can change. I know we've got the advanced poll. I know that there's probably more urban votes to come in. But a lot of seats are going to have to flip from where they are now to get the Liberals to a majority. And I would certainly only say, let's not equate minority government with instability or parliament from hell. You know, this is, there's, you know, even in a crisis, there's two ways in which you can have stability in a crisis. One is one party wins a majority of the vote and just rams everything through. Another is the parties figure out they have to work together.
I agree, but look at these two parties.
Put aside politics as usual.
Do you see Pierre Poilievre working with Mark Carney?
We'll have to see.
I mean, he believes that the role of the opposition is to oppose.
سمعكم طلع يفوتون من بيير بولييف انتي يقولوا مسلكم من سي بي سي فاند مش توهابي خا زوهاب على جنزب نحجز الكا نتي فاند تجوفرنت سي بي سي برودكاستينج سيرفيس مالتي جنزب كله قوس ديلهم أي هوكم نفاند لهم نزوم دازينا that's why they do for some علىهم
maybe quickly Arif for running, then I got to go to Catherine Cullen.
Well, I'll agree
with
what Althea said, but just politely push back. So on the point about the advanced polls coming out, that we still need to wait for that. There's no doubt. I think the conversation with respect to crime has absolutely happened by Mark Carney, by the platform that he put out. It talks about things like gun control. It talks about things like investments in officers. What it doesn't talk about is suspending charter rights and invoking the notwithstanding clause. I think that's a mature approach, a professional approach, and one that is required from somebody who aspires to the highest office.
Okay. Take a look at the bottom of your screen. That's what's got us all worked up here because things are moving around very quickly and things are very close. And so that's where we are tonight. Yes, it'll be a Liberal government What kind is anyone's guess? Catherine Cullen.
Yeah, and you see the NDP there hovering just below official party status. But one thing that is a little bit more certain than that, one seat that is a little bit more certain, is that of Alexandre Boulairis. He maintains the NDP presence in Quebec. And I believe we have Mr. Boulairis. The CBC's Quabina Oduro is in the riding of Rosemont-La Petite Patrie. And you got the candidate himself there, Quabina.
Yes, I do, Catherine. And when it was brought up on screen that he was elected again in his riding, the crowd erupted. And I'm here with Alexandre Boulairis. What's that feeling like?
No, I'm so proud, and I thank the people of Rosemont-La Petite Patrie for their confidence for a fifth mandate. We will continue to talk for them and to fight for them and get results.
So it is going to be a liberal government. What are your feelings about that?
Yeah.
At least it's not a conservative government, and we showed in the past that we can negotiate with the Liberals and get concrete results for Quebecers like dental care. So we will continue that kind of work in Ottawa. It's not going to be easy, but I don't know what will be the end of this evening. It's quite exciting.
What do you want Quebecers and Canadians to know now that you are going back to the House of Commons to serve them?
I will be there to talk for their issues, grocery, housing, the cost of living. We will continue to fight for working families, and we will have a close look on the Liberals and Mr. Carney.
So you are happy, your fans here are happy, your volunteers are happy. What is it like seeing your party not do so well tonight, though?
It's difficult. It's a rough night for the NDP in general. We'll see at the end of the evening. But it was difficult from the beginning because of Mr. Trump changed everything. But we will continue to be there for Quebecers and Canadians.
Thank you very much and congratulations.
Thank you.
Back to you, Catherine.
Thank you very much for that, Quabina. The CBC's Quabina Oduro in Rosemont-La Petite Patrie. And I will note, Rosemary, I believe as of right now, Mr. Boulairis is the only actually projected elected NDP candidate in the country. There are obviously a number of races where they're leading, but that's the only one the CBC's decision desk has said is a go.
Okay, so again, at the bottom of your screen there, 156 to 149, but those numbers keep bouncing around back and forth, and that's because we still have so many ridings where we do not have a projected elected, and that's what's going to happen until we get things a little more solidified. As David was pointing out, some of the numbers in Ontario may shift a bit still, with advanced polls being counted and what have you. So we might be in for a long evening here. It is late already, but we might be in for a lot longer. Chantal, it looked like you wanted to say something there.
I'm looking at the...
ካብ ድዛረብ ኢለ ይስቕል ምሳኹም ድዕዘብ ዘለኹ ዝልዎ ዘሎ ጥራይ ምክትታል እዩ እጥቕታት ሓፍ ኮፍ ይብላ ኣሎ ገና እቲ ቮት ሕጂ ኣትሶ ዘሎ እዩ ተለኹም ካብ 148 ፀኒሑ ኮንሰርቫቲቭ ሓንቲ ጎዲላ ሊበራል ሓንቲ ወሲኻ ባት ይውስኺ ጎዲል ዘሎ እንተኾነ ግን እዚ ፕሮጀክሽን ናቶም እዩ ዝፅበይዎ ሊበራል ጋቨርንመንት ብማጆሪቲ ሲቲ ክዕወት ወላ ብማይኖሪቲ ሲቲ ክዕወት ብጣዕሚ ወሳኒ እዩ ኸዚ ኤኒዌይ نكاتل عم جرشوا استعوت إذا بلينا ممكن تالت حجي.
Yeah. It seems to me that the vote counting is slower than usual.
It might be.
In many regions of the country. Carlton is a special case because it's got 91 candidates on the ballot.
But, we don't know what the turnout is. If the turnout is anyway what the advanced polls was, if that is reflected in the general, there are more votes to be counted then too, right? That's possible.
Yes, but I also believe that in future Elections Canada should want a protocol where the advanced polls are all calculated at the
ahead
same
of time. Yeah.
So that it doesn't skew the commentary and the results and kind of gives you a more stable basis for what's happening.
Right, because again, in Carlton, where they have those 91 people on the ballot, they were allowed to start counting those votes 6 hours ahead of time. Advanced polls in the rest of the country, it's 2 hours ahead of time if the returning officer wants. It's up to each returning officer to make that decision, and that's why things are a little sticky right now, I would say. Okay, what am I doing here?
Yeah, Liberal Party Liberal Party تعويتهم الله أنت كنا majority دي minority government قهزة يفلتنا but still it vote still count يكبر so كم يكون we still wait كم زولكم ناي كندا قطع أنت prime minister هم كانت مرس مجمرتا ناي كوابي خات مرس ده حاريو نابستايد قيد
say volatile, unusual and difficult to predict, I think is the safe way to characterize things in this highly unusual election. You've got some results.
predict go
Let's go to Saskatchewan, where things
some zaru ነገራት ይቀየራሉ
and the counting has almost, well, if not been completed, at least the picture is a lot clearer there. And if you look at the vote change, well, look at the share that the Conservatives have. That will come as no surprise to anybody. The Liberals have increased their vote share by 11 percentage points, but kind of only a moral victory when you consider that is not really translating into a significant change in terms of seats, although even winning one seat in Saskatchewan for the Liberals is significant because it'll be the first time that they've done this. And the seat we're talking about, and we've mentioned it many times, Nippy Churchill River. Buckley Bélanger is going to Ottawa. He's been a provincial Liberal. He's been a provincial NDP MLA. He ran unsuccessfully for the Liberals last time around. Redistribution changed this riding and made it look a lot more favorable for the Liberals. And of course, the Liberals have won there. But in the cities, Regina and Saskatoon, this is a province that does not have a truly urban riding. So the ridings include the suburbs and the city core. Makes it difficult for the progressive parties to beat the Conservatives. And look at Andrew Scheer, the former Conservative leader. No surprise that he's won Regina Capel by a huge margin. And Regina Capel is where the CBC's Adam Hunter is tonight. Adam, I know you're an expert on things political in Saskatchewan, so you can take this in any direction you want. What's the headline tonight in Saskatchewan?
I think a crack in the blue wall for the Conservative Party. They held with that share vote you showed, Ian, very impressively, but the Liberals gaining that seat in the north is not insignificant. They'll be happy about that. Here in Regina, they were hoping to pick up some steam, maybe Regina Wascana.
عادش تتقاتلتي تدعلهم سبسكرايب مقبار يتوحدوا سبسكرايب مورو لايك عبال وزبي ناب كل متان كبتسح
No surprise there. Andrew Scheer winning for the 8th time. The class of 2004 coming in at the same time as Pierre Poilievre. As 24-year-olds, we're waiting to hear from Andrew Scheer. He'll be speaking with us, we believe, momentarily.
And what about the state of the NDP in Saskatchewan tonight?
Yeah, Ian, it's a bit surprising and disappointing, I think, at the same time for the NDP because they did so well in the provincial election, putting up a big fight in that provincial result, really increasing their seat count. But that didn't translate federally. The federal and provincial NDP aren't really aligned. And that showed, I think, tonight in the results, that 13% drop in the share of the vote for the NDP, very significant. And the Liberals picking up a lot of second places across the province, which is a surprise here in Saskatchewan.
All right, Adam Hunter, thank you very much for giving us the lay of the land in Saskatchewan. Rosemary.
Okay, thanks for that, Ian. Let me show you what's going on at the bottom of your screen there. And that is a whole lot of nothing definitive, basically. 157 leading and elected for the Liberals, 149 for the Conservatives. The Bloc sort of sticking around that number now that most of the counting is done in Quebec. The NDP at 10 and the Greens at 1. And I believe that's Saanich Gulf Islands at this stage. So we are waiting to be able to give you a better sense of what kind of government Mark Carney will lead in his new mandate, where he is an elected prime minister, not just one who won leadership. That is Liberal headquarters, where there was a lot of excitement earlier in the night when it was declared that they would form government. But right now, they are waiting to see what exactly that means.
So, كم سمعوا لهم announce كيرمو already liberal government كم استعوت إنه زاروا زلوا اتوانا حتى وجن حجي majority government يمكن حزو ولا minority government يمكن حزو that's the main حتى مالتي.
Or a minority government. With me is David Lemeni, the former Justice Minister and Attorney General of Canada. He left the government last year. He's a longtime friend of Mark Carney and has been providing informal advice to him throughout his campaign. Mr. Lemeni, can you just talk about how you're feeling seeing the results come in, especially that projection for the first seat in Saskatchewan?
Look, I'm really happy that Mark Carney will continue to be Prime Minister of Canada. I think that's critical. I'm really happy that in the riding I used to represent, Claude Gay has won that riding back for the Liberal Party. And I'm glad that Buckley Bélanger has won a seat in Saskatchewan. I think that's critically important for the government's credibility to be able to have support in all regions of the country. So I'm really pleased about that. Obviously, there are a lot of close races that we would want to see the end of. Hopefully our numbers will go up a little bit when the advanced polls come in Ontario and other places. But look, If you had asked me in December if these numbers were possible, I would have said no. With Mark Carney in place, we've got these numbers, we've got government, we can serve Canadians, we can stand up to Mr. Trump. There's so much we can do that we couldn't do last November, last December.
Right now, do you still think the Liberals can win a majority tonight?
Well, there are a lot of tight races left. A lot of really tight races in Ontario. We'll see more tight races in British Columbia. We still have to wait and see the advanced polls. So let's see what happens. We know we're going to get government. Let's hope that that government is a strong one.
The vote is so divided right now. What does that say to you about the state of politics in Canada?
There's division out there, and we need to work. We need to work as a country, and we need to work as a government. Mr. Carney, Prime Minister Carney, is going to have to work as a government to be a rassembleur, to bring people together. There's a lot of misinformation out there. We need to combat that. We need to establish the ability to talk to each other again. And since I left politics, it's been a lot easier to talk to people on all sides. And it is something that we all just have to do. Every single citizen has to do it. But a government in particular has to lead, and Mr. Carney will lead us.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Lametti.
Thanks,
That's David Lametti, the former Justice Minister here at the Liberal headquarters.
Okay, thank you, Ashley Burke. And of course, David Lametti, a good friend of Mark Carney's.
So yeah, كم زلكم already liberal تعوي تمام. أنت قلنا جن أنت عن majority government و minority government كلهم.
There waiting to find out how this night is going to unfold. Catherine Cullen, do you have some results?
Yeah, well, Rosie, a lot of action happening on that board. So let's go to Alberta, look at some of the cities and see where some of that action is happening. I believe we are going to start here with Edmonton Griesbach. There you go. Now, this was a rematch, right? Carrie Diot, the previous MP for this riding, Blake Desjardins of the NDP, won it in the last election. Carrie Diot has won it back. That is projected elected. So that is one of the certainties tonight, and some of the movement that you're seeing there also speaks to what is happening with the NDP numbers. Let's head over to Calgary. In Calgary Centre right now, the Conservative incumbent Greg McLean is in second. This is a riding that the Liberals took in 2015, but Greg McLean has had it for some time, so we're going to want to watch the results there. Calgary Confederation, Corey Hogan. If you're a political nerd, like some of the people in this room, cough, cough, you might know Corey Hogan from his podcast, The Strategists. Right now, he is in the lead, but he's got quite an opponent in Jeremy Nixon, somebody well-known in provincial politics. And finally, Calgary McKnight, where the Liberal George Chahal finds himself in second at this point. The Conservative Delwinder Gill ahead by more than 400 votes at this stage of the game, Rosie.
Lots of interesting races there in Alberta. Thanks for that, Catherine. Want to show you a little bit of how the leaders are doing. Those are the MPs or candidates I'm tracking. Let's start with Mark Carney. As we said, he handily won his riding, my gosh, by more than 10,000 votes in Nepean. First time he has been elected to public office, first PM to never hold an elected position. And also, here's another bit of trivia, first Prime Minister born in Northwest Territories, although he grew up mostly in Alberta. Next, let's have a look at... Okay, that is Pierre Poilievre's riding of Carlton. Again, he is trailing the Liberal by 1,700 votes. Not a lot of polls reporting, and as we talked about before, advanced polls may indeed be a factor here. The longest ballot initiative, also a factor. There were 91 candidates on that ballot, but right now Pierre Poilievre trailing in his own riding. Okay, Yves-François Blanchet, we told you about that either. Also, a big lead for him, an easy win in Belleuil-Chambly as leader of the Bloc Québécois. And this is Burnaby Central. It is early still, but the news here is what many in the NDP feared. Jugmeet Singh is in third place in his own riding of Burnaby Central, the Liberal leading by 240 votes. But for Jugmeet Singh to be in third, that might be the start of a very bad story for him tonight. And there you go, Elizabeth May. She is leading in her riding by 1,700 votes. Saanich Gulf Islands will continue to watch there. Elizabeth May, of course, has been around for a long time. She is the co-leader of the Green Party at this stage. And that's because this man, Jonathan Pedneau, is the other co-leader. He decided to run in in fourth.
زي راهل بنديان ناي immigration minister. Okay. So ብዙح ግዜ ክትሪኦም ናታ መደብ ከምጽ እንታ ዘውጻቶ ሓድሽ ነገራት ሓድሽ ናይ immigration ጉዳያት ከምጽ راهل بنديان ይሽማ ሃተልዋ
in the Beauce, Maxime Bernier, placing third. He is still the leader of the People's Party of Canada. We'll see whether that party continues after tonight. There has been very little success for him tonight and losing badly in his own home riding of the Beauce. All right, let's go back to David Cochran.
No, you look sad to lose no, just don't you know we have time to process. No, we have cap had a saat and I مثلا نيرو no. The results I wish had a saat what's يمثل نيرو. قلنا we have time.
The Conservatives were leading in this all night.
Look at this. تقول لهم مش قصالي process. So كنت بينا كسب result مت نبي ممكن نكاتولي نازلنا. قلنا we have time process.
Just under dozens of votes ahead. He's got a 23 vote lead over Jonathan Rowe right now with 268 of 270 polls reporting. We've seen some change, for example, in Nova Scotia, where Sean Fraser has moved out to a pretty big lead right now, almost 2,000 votes. But Miramichi, Grand Lake is flipping back and forth in New Brunswick, and this is all on the advanced polls. And that's going to be something we've got to watch in the GTA, for example. Rosie, as I was saying earlier, the Liberals are down about 10 seats in Ontario. There's a lot of advanced votes, they think, still to be counted in a lot of these ridings where they are losing. The vote efficiency, you would expect, with them being in the 44% or wherever it is in the popular vote, is not quite showing up because they're winning these seats by bigger margins.
ناتي مرجع منتهي ترجمالو حج نجير. أبزا comments بس حتى لهي blue or red. I mean, زنقة سنو سينا لهكي. That's it. At the end of the day, أب ما تروح أكون نفس خال مع بالي تزحشة. You know, نقول دلو مهان. بتري. That's it. دمت أنت. I'm ready.
So, you know, as we look at the tightening back and forth, as these results come in massive numbers, Carlton, for instance, the Pierre Poilievre riding, 43,000 advance votes in a single riding there. So there's numbers like that in the tens of thousands right across the country.
And to that end, look at what's going on now at the bottom of your screen. Things have changed pretty dramatically again. Now the Liberals shooting back up to 163 and the Conservatives dropping down to 146, the NDP dropping there as well. So that shows you a little bit, again, how fluid things are still at this hour. What the heck time is it? 11:30 Eastern. Polls have all been closed since 10 o'clock Eastern, an hour and a half in. Yes, we've said who's going to form government, but because those numbers continue to shift around a lot, because of the way this election has unfolded, really being a race between the two main parties, that is where we're at tonight. Still lots of movement there and still not able to make a call on what kind of government you will end up with by the end of this night, or who knows, maybe early into tomorrow morning. Let's go to this result, though, that has been projected elected.
So comes to go to the law already liberal government تعويتهم. Oh,
in the riding of University Rosedale,
Freeland
has been projected elected with a
finance minister ነበረትና ካናዳ ሕጅቃተ መሪጽ አላ member of parliament ማለት ፎቶዋን
me now. Congratulations to you, Christopher Freeland.
أنا
Thank you, Rosie Barton.
How are you feeling about where the Liberal Party is tonight? Yes, you're going to form government again. Not sure what kind of government, but what do you make of what has been a remarkable turnaround?
I think it's a remarkable turnaround, Rosie. You know,
ናይ finance minister ነበረቲ ኣብ ዝሓለፈ resign ገይረ ኢላ ነይራ ብዙ ተዛሪባ ነይራ ሕጂ እንደገና ተሳቲፋ ተመሪጻ ማለት which means ተፈታውነት ኣለዋ ለ 10 ዓመት ያ ፖለቲካ ሰሪሓ ንፍዕቲ ኣሓጥ ምዝራ ግን ራንጌራ ነይራ ናይ ሊበራል ፓርቲ መራሒት ክትኮን ስለዚ ብዙሕ ተፈታውነት ኣለዋ እንተኾነ ማርክ ካርኒ ዝሓሸ ስታይ ነይሩ ማንዴት ነይሩ ላይክ ምስትናቱ ሬዘሜሪ ኢኻ ምስቲ ትምህርቲ ዝተምሃሮ ምስቲ ናይ ባንክ ኦፍ ኢንግላንድ ጋቨርነር ኮይኑ ዘገልገሎ ኣብ ሃርቨርድ መምሃሩ it's not tourism, it's
It's a great night for Canadians. What I have experienced in my own riding, supporting 27 other candidates in Ontario and places like Saskatchewan, is Canadians recognized that this was a critical moment for our country. Canadians understood that the ballot question is who can fight for Canada, who can stand up to Donald Trump, and the answer is the Liberal Party and Mark Carney.
How much responsibility do you take for where we are at tonight? Because one could argue that part of your move to quit is what triggered Justin Trudeau's resignation, Mark Carney's arrival. Do you take any solace in that difficult decision given where you are tonight?
You know, Rosie, obviously I did not have a crystal ball on that morning when I took the really tough decision to resign from the cabinet, but I knew it was the right thing to do. I didn't know what would happen next, but I knew that we were headed in the wrong direction and that I had to do something about it. And I knew it was the right thing then. I'm delighted by our party's comeback. And really grateful
ጸሎት ክንገብር ትብሉ ዘለኹም ነው እዞም ጸሎት የለጣሚ ጸሎት ሎት እዮም ጽን ሕጂ ግን ኦሬዲ ኣትዩ ትስታይ so already liberal government ተፈጢሩ ግን majority minority ክህልዎ ጥራይ ኣብዚ ነገር ሰንከስ ንዓና እኮ ብዙሕ ስታይ ፈጠልና ያብሉ ንኩሉ ሬዲ ኢና ድመፀንፃ just ግን you know እንታይ ያጋጥማሉ እቲ ፕሮብለም ናብ ትራምፕ የማስግረሞ ዘሎ Trump
experience and a moment, and I have been so proud of Canada, so proud to be Canadian, and felt this real palpable wave of patriotism. Now we need to harness that patriotism and use it to unite our country and to build our country. And I know that that is what Mark Carney's government is going to do.
Okay, Chrystia Freeland, thank you for making the time on this busy night for you. Congratulations. We will speak again soon, I'm sure. Thank you.
Okay, thank you too.
Okay, thank you. That's Chrystia Freeland, who has easily won her riding today. Tonight, she is projected elected. Adrienne Arsenault has some more results.
Not such an easy battle in other parts of Ontario. We've been talking all night about how tight it is. Well, let's just look at some places where it's very tight. Eglinton Lawrence, Vince Gasparo, only leading by 55 with 114 polls reporting. This is happening all over Ontario. Let's look at another riding where it is extremely tight. Brampton, North Caledon. Ruby Sahota, the government whip, again, only leading by 29. There are 6 seats in Brampton. Almost all of them are very, very tight. Is Windsor, Tecumseh, Lakeshore. Now it's 325 votes. This was initially thought that it might be a Liberal NDP toss-up, but look at what is happening. And if the numbers don't tell you a story, let's look at this next graph, which shows how tight it has been there all night long. This is the vote share in Windsor, Tecumseh, Lakeshore. Look at that line between the Liberals and the Conservatives. This is the story that is playing out in many, many ridings across Ontario, potentially across the country. That is why the number keeps bouncing the way it does at the bottom of your screen, Rosie.
Okay, yeah, it sure does. It's moving around an awful lot, but right now tracking a little more heavily for the Liberals. Remember, a majority government, 172. The Liberals right now projected or elected in 164. Let me show you what the vote share looks like right across the country. Adrienne showed you that one particular riding.
Wow.
Look at that. 42.6 for the Liberals, 41.7 for the Conservatives. That is how close things are. And again, the second part of that story is as you go down your screen and you see what's happened to the Bloc and the NDP at just 5%, which is undoubtedly a devastating outcome for them. They are not yet right at official party status. Not sure whether they will get there. That is the number 12 that you have to watch. But again, lots of things still.
ክትፈልጡ ለኩም ሕጂ ከም በዓል NDP ትሪኡ ኣለኩም 9 ሲት ሒዞም ዘለዉ ሓደ ፖለቲካል ፓርቲ ከም ፓርቲ ኮይኑ ክሰርሕ ኮይኑ ካናዳ ተውሓደ 12 ሲት ክረክብ ኣለዎ NDP 12 ሲት ይብሉም ብጣዕሚ ከሲሮም እቲ ቀንዲ ክሰሮም ካን ይግረኩም ይሕደጉም ይደለኒ እንትኾነ ግን 9 ሲት ኣለዎም ኦፊሻል ፓርቲ ኮንካ ክሰርሕ ኮንካ at least 12 ሲት ክልወካ ኣሎ 12 ሲት ይብሉም
First of all, at Victoria, Will Greaves, University of Victoria professor, has pretty well doubled the vote share for the Conservatives in a riding which for a long time has been held by the NDP. I talked to another professor at UVic who said that Professor Greaves got the nomination back when it didn't look like there was really any chance of the Liberals winning. Well, now next year he's not going to teach any students. He's going to be heading to Ottawa. Esquimalt Saanich Suk, Stephanie McLean has gone from being a cabinet minister in the Rachel Notley NDP government in Alberta to displacing the NDP candidate here. This is Randall Garrison's old riding, so of course he was an analyst with us earlier tonight. Obviously, the
I mean,
incumbent.
نيم حق المرة تكون ترى على ما تكومنت صحفوا يا يمكن صحفوا ترى election كتبوا ولا تمس صحفوا أنا first time لما جمرت أجزاء لهم يا في وقت يملو مريت أمالتي and بتعمي interesting democratic circle كلها حدا يدور بأكل السابق كلها دلوا في اللي حكال مع أصحابي إنها زاربوا المجد بتعمي
That's kind of interesting. And
anyway, مريت كانت في الكونكا first time مريت كلها.
Look at North Island, Powell River. This is a riding that
بتعمي دست بلكا. That's why كان last time كده دلاكم روتو زبل زنور.
the NDP candidate.
قال له اسمع كان قد تسافر كلها أب ديمقراطية كميسر فترة خلها. سب دبليبل. أنا حرسب مسؤول مخالف مرت إذا أمنا دلاكم روتو زي كده تستأذن دوات أكون حكم تعمل. رأيك أنت ساتفو.
Thank you for that, Ian. I'm going to show a couple of boards myself now to explain a little bit more of the story we're seeing tonight. This is sort of what we call a party summary board, how they're doing right across the country at this stage in the evening. So you can see their vote share 5.5% overall. But look at those numbers on the right, on the far right of your screen. Those numbers down. The NDP is down in every region of the country. And let me show you where some of that has gone by showing you this next board. This is the Liberal Party. Overall, 42.6%. But look at that. Look at what has happened to them on the right of your screen. Up in every single region of the country. And that explains a little bit where we are tonight. That collapse of the NDP, yes, has supported everyone, the Conservatives and the Liberals, but the Liberals really surging with some support growth, some growth in every part of the country. Let's go to David Cochran.
Yeah, Rosie, I mean, the NDP are down by double-digit percentage points everywhere. They could go down by double-digit percentage points. The only spot where they're not are the ones where they were in the single digits to begin with. But look, the path to party status was a difficult one for the NDP coming into Jugmeet Singh's third national election. They need 12 seats to get there. It's going to be tough. They have nothing in Atlantic Canada. We know that. They do have one seat.
I don't know.
NDP was re-elected in the Rosemont-Le-Petit-Patrie riding. That's one. He's the Eastern Canadian flank. We do have them leading in Nunavut, but I don't believe they're elected yet in Nunavut. But let's look at Ontario. Let's look at Greater Toronto Area. Olivia Chow is the mayor of Toronto. There is not a single speck of orange anywhere to see in the GTA. We go into southwestern Ontario, northern Ontario. That was Charlie Angus's seat. Right now, that is blue on our map. You go into southwestern Ontario.
እዞም ብዛዕባ ምርጫ ተሓቲ ዘለኹም elections ካናዳ ኢልኩም እተው ክትሪእዎ ትኽእሉ ኢኹም ኣብ ላይቭ ከመይ ይካየድ ኣሎ ብቴሌፎንኩም ማለት እዩ ወይ ድማ ኣብዚ ላይቭ ክትከታተልዎ ትኽእሉ ኢኹም ብዩቲዩብ ማለት እዩ ከምዚ ኣነ ደሪአኩም ዘለኹ ባይ ሕጂ ግን ክትመርፅ ኣይትኽእልን ኣብ ሰዓት እዚ ስዳን just ናይ ምፍቃር ሰዓት ሕጂ ኣካውንቲንግ ስታይል እንድሕር ዳኣሎም ወዲኦም ኩሉ Already at certain modium again, you know, taking time, update the phone app system. Well, lomi حاجة كحبرنا يوم لو مشت ويد ما تصبح نقول. So كنت بين أكسب زخون زخون.
Right now, Leah Gazan is the last new Democrat standing in Manitoba. She has been elected, I'm told, in Manitoba. In Saskatchewan, they are nowhere at this point in time. You go into Alberta, you go to Edmonton. We already reported earlier, Blake Desjardins had lost his riding of Edmonton-Griesbach. Heather McPherson is leading right now in Edmonton-Strathcona. So that means, really, obviously, no growth potential here. No growth potential here. It all comes down to British Columbia. This is where the core of the NDP caucus was. They had 13 seats in the last parliament from British Columbia. Ian talked about what's happening on Vancouver Island. Well, you know, this is going to be tight. It's already one of the orange seats is flipped blue as the counting goes back and forth. You know, I have described Vancouver Island as the Narnia of Canadian politics. You got green, red, blue, and orange. Nowhere else in the country does that happen, but it's playing out here on Vancouver Island. But you have Liberals in Victoria leading right now for the first time since David Anderson was a member of Parliament in the Chrétien years. But look, this is where it really comes down to right now. Is the Lower Mainland. In Greater Vancouver, there were 5 NDP seats in Vancouver, including the leader, Jugmeet Singh. He's trailing right now. The others are close. Don Davies in Vancouver Kingsway, the last update I had on that was less than 300 votes. So these are the areas where the NDP needs to come back, Rosie, if they're going to get to the 12 seats. But the arse is out of their vote. It's up to Vancouver to put it back in there. And I don't know if they have enough time and enough ground game to get it done at this
Yeah, زبازحو بزعب أونتاريو تحضر لكم أبكم ما تزبازح سبب أونتاريو زلو ليبرالي مزبوط ولا ناتشرال ولا خد كذا أبساعد زجن مزي رايز نايكوس نجارات أيروم نيروم ناب conservative party كان مغرب سي جالسن تقول كورن كله مزحت وسب بك conservative كم رأتي بالنيرو أنت هنا نعوري لهم government عاجم نيروم من استعجم حدش مرحنا ليبرال مريتهم حدش برايم مينستر كوين مارك كارني then اتي بروبلم ناب دونالد ترامب تعريف قاتي مو بل 50 حركه قبل اخنا داغرم زبله قطع شيفت غير قلت دايناميك كومي بوليتكس كا ግን እሱም እንቶም ናይ ሊበራል ሓለፍት ዝነው እሱም ስቲል መሪሕነት ደለው ዋላ ማርካን ምስ መጻ ዛጋ ዝቆዩ ሰም ነሮ anyway ሕጂ ዝምርጫ ካ that's why ማርካን ተዓዊቱ ግን ማይኖሪቲ ማጆሪቲ ኮምጹ ሕጂ ናኽሪዮ that's why Canada dibezሕ ግዜ ነው ናይ ሊበራል
keep going back to the writing of Carlton. Yes, Mr. Poilievre's writing, which after 40 polls now, he is still lagging well behind. I'm not saying he's going to lose, but you would think they've done well in Ontario. And yet in his writing, but the night we're having now is the fact that we had a binary campaign. And the reason why we're all a bit trying to find our footing is because we've never done an election night that was like this one. Where none of the usual assumptions allow us to know how this is going to end. Yes, we know it's going to end with the Liberal government. Yes. I also believe the advance poll thing and the lack of a protocol forces us to not
نظام حدش تأثر لهم حجي من تعويته تبذل لهم liberal government تعويته already Mark Carney prime minister نكان ركضون تقولنا جن majority seat يخحز minority seat يخحز جن نوعين عن بدلنا بحاج مبر already Mark Carney تعويته كويم دار ولا لو but أنت عن government يو form قبل يوم يلو number وثاني أب parliament كندي سبعة لك كندي seat إسكال because هون حق حلف تخينو vote government هو ولا تخينو
that's what they get to decide. I guess the issue is, should they be able to decide that way? I will remember an election, now I'm really dating myself, where Jean Charest was going to win in Sherbrooke, and it looked like he was about to lose.
Oh, the Radio Canada declared him lost.
That's right.
Half an hour was lost on burying Mr. Charest, who subsequently won a seat.
He won. And I was in Sherbrooke, and they kept saying to me, don't do it, don't do it. The boxes aren't open. And that is exactly what happened. The advance ballots got opened, and he clinched his riding.
So you know why I'm obsessing over advance votes? Because I lived through that.
Yeah. Andrew?
Yeah, I have one small concern about that, which is to date we have not had a lot of conspiracy theories about Canadian elections, you know, that we mark them with a paper ballot. It's hard for people to make funny business out of it. But we did see some people talking about, you know, pens versus pencils, et cetera. And I'm certainly hoping that there won't be anybody jumping on this advance thing where if it comes in a wave at the end and the Liberals improve their seat count, I hope that will not give rise to people saying, well, it was all because there was some funny business with the advance polls.
Well, you can use a pen, but they do have special paper, so even if you use a pencil, it doesn't get erased, just so people fact check that. But if you have 7.3 million votes in advanced polls, like something's going to happen. Either it's happened or it's going to happen, because that's a lot of people who voted, a record number, So
as I say, for some people, that's going to feed some conspiracy theories.
Perhaps, yeah. Althea?
تعباتي زكاة نبرة مرشة قديمهم نمر سوات نرو advance voting بحلالو زعو شوعتنا 3 مليون سوات مريضة كابزقة ببيرون برصاص نحتصف أنا برصاص يتحيفي حجي نعمل قال يوم قلنا بيرو يفك أدني زوال سوات نرو أب قال يخلنا بيرو يفك أريز بالنيرو هجا أب سوشيال ميديا إذا عرستي صحت سوات نو كم زيلهم أب لايف ولا كندا وان ماتي أب لايف ناتو موتين زعبازي عرستي زارو نيرو برصاص قات بيرو أبي منا بيروس كحكة خير إني برصاص كحكة خيني عتبل دل حكي like راب كير كخلت كيروس هيتخلني خا عتبل دل هجي انتر ليبرال بما بعدي كوزت عاوتهم سي كاتع يخلي زبل I don't know كنت بينا هجي سيدا سكفني ليو على الوتر كان نتبي مالتي
Yeah, I'm told we're at about 38% turnout. Is that right, where we are right now? So that suggests that there's a lot of ballots that have not been counted.
Yes.
Yeah. No.
25% of the vote, right? You know, like 7.3 million people voted.
Unless really nobody voted today, which I also find hard to believe, because I was also told 1 million votes had been counted. So the count may be slow. That might be part of the problem.
Turning into California.
And what?
We're turning into California, where it takes them a week to count the...
I don't think that's happening, but yeah.
I know you're taking breakfast orders. Sunny side up.
I can get you a coffee. I don't know that I can do eggs yet. I'll get my Uber Eats out if I have to. We'll get you guys.
ናይ liberal government سلو. Okay. سلو تحضر لهم ናይ liberal
I'm going to go down to show you where we're at right now as we talk about all these factors that are not allowing us to make any determination on how this night is going to end as we get closer to midnight Eastern here. 161 leading and elected for the Liberals. We've told you they're going to form the next government. We are not confused about that. That is going to happen. Confident in that projection. The second part of the story is what is left there on your screen at the bottom of your screen. 150 for the Conservatives. That is moving up and down pretty often. That number. The Bloc pretty much holding where you see it around 23, 24. The NDP not getting into the double digits for some time now, and that one green there, Elizabeth May. So that is where the fluidity of the evening is, and as Chantal just rightly pointed out.
نظام تحضر لهم تدنس من الدقام كيكون زيد فوتو تحط زنوركم منيو حدش برايم مينستر كون ما تمريت نيرو ندي اوريدي قدم قلت ورحي قدم ورحي حجي كن اوريدي كونفيرم يجرم ولو سو زيت مارك كارني زبال زي قال لهم ديت فوتو لهم سو نزي مسل
is pretty evenly matched as well. I'm going to go to Ian, who's got some results now.
حتى تدعلق مع كومنت صحوته لهم كي ملسلكم من داخل نعمة ريكم على لفو I think حمشين ساعات على لهم 4 مثلا حمشين ساعات حتى أنت لو ملسلكم بالله نحطكم تصل فعلنا.
So good on all of you.
I'm here for a good time and apparently a long time.
Actually, cap تتصبحون لعلي no process coins anything like normally see you know like حتى رابلون دو مثلا لكن to vote the advanced voting ساب said go blue قال ملا إذا وسيدو.
At the expense of the NDP, though, only one of those two is elected. The other one is leading. But let's take a look, first of all, in the one they're leading. We've talked about it a few times already. Nikki Ashton has been the longtime we're going to actually start in Winnipeg West. Doug Ailson, ER Doc, who was an MP, Marty Morantz, has turned the tables on him, and he is going back to Ottawa. I think we're going to go up north now. Yes, we are. Churchill Kiwatanuk Aski and the longtime MP Nikki Ashton is trailing by quite a bit. So we don't have enough information there to declare this riding, but you can see it's a big and solid lead for Rebecca Chartrand, who lost this riding by a
conservative كعوتو يقول نيرو يتعوتون the main character تكوين قات مسلكم مبزعته سبنا دونالد ترامب تاريخ نسبله أتي سبت لعب so بجزء جاستن ترو دم مبزعته سبت ودي وين يرو كإلا لو يدي منيرهم that's why كبعض resign جل you know تحرد حريقن ماركارني نسمت أحدش أجندة از حزة ما تناطو رزيمة تاريخي مهوري تعموري بلهيو رجي بزحات فريندز هم دلوا ولا بإنجلاند مالتي كندا ها كم جزءاتنا إنجلاند يا درجة كز ناتهم سيستم كومي anyway ولا خدم حلك الله على محل خدم كلها سيزن شوف يا بلغة أوز تمحلها أوث and King Charles قال كه تمحل كله تأوز بلك عايز كورونا هجي so yeah مسناي دونالد ترامب متتطاب سعد زقبرو مبل 50 حرم ستيت كونه كندا زين خل اندولو مبزحتو كندا وتم ليبرال ترحلو مش عنتايلهم already to vote ناب ليبرال كيدو but anyway زمت أنتنا عنا حنت خنفلت عدلنا we have to be ready دلونو مهاني كني كاتول سلدلنا أنا كاتول دل نمبر نعزب علينا 5 درجة 300 حساب لايف كاتول شميس كل ساب جزء تلفزيون جيرو زيد كذا دلو قال لي خاب تليفون كم زخمانة مالتي.
So in a couple of months, if these results hold and you're sitting there in the House and the Bloc Québécois votes with you for the first time, what will your response be to the Conservatives who say this is yet another coalition?
Well, I think we have to respect the will of the Canadian people. They give us the parliament that they give us. We have a responsibility to work with all parties in the House, and we will do that. NDP, Bloc, Conservatives. You know, our country is under threat right now from our neighbor to the south, so we need to work together to stand strong for Canadians.
Terry, thanks very much for taking the time here.
All right, thank you very much.
كلهم زعبا بروسس تحت زولكم مالتي. Liberal government كوز زولو إهجي. نسمي مكو. إذا بروسس كم يخيل تلكم إني liberal government بزيهم سرتني أدمتو. already كاب كلامه. أبسعزي أقارش أماني روم. كبلكم سأقولوا موت قصور ثاب كابتس نبورماتي. قال عم بعد group 5 قالها تتوابيلهم. بحجم تايم تسجن بحج زوات سينان سمع. ما أبوليتيكا قديمهم جبلون دقبرون حدا يكون ما بزحلو أن نقبر له نتصبح you know نتصبح مش تنزقات أمريكنا أزنزن نبل هجيكن أزيخ بلاكم كفيديو I don't know أنا حنتي فلتني أنا تايم تسجن مش كونه إنك نقرأكم زقاتي مهم جيلهم حد شاطر يوم حد شفيلهم كنقرأكم إيه دعوة نسوم قاعد فلتمو information أقدر أصله زخوني.
So much for joining us and congratulations on your win tonight.
Thank you very much.
I mean, let's chat about what you said at that stage there just a few minutes ago. The future of the New Democratic Party is in this room, and for the West, that might be you. So
حتى نقدر أبسطاته NDP شو ما أنت سيترالو عبد زي جاستن ترودز نخص أن حز حجوز NDP أميرهم لا العسل تخلت الشيء نيرهم أبس ساعات زقودي له نمبرهم تزقودي له مغنيات كان تايو اتناتهم هو بنت أفيو حزبي قبل عليهم زلوا امنت أفيو كنك زي election call كجبري بالنيرو ناي NDP مرح جاكميت سينغ ماتي أنا election تسويع snap election تسويع بالنيرو كي تسويع تودع بعد resign جر إذا خاقت يوم حجي معناتي that's why تهزبي قبل علي زلوا امنت that's why أكمل روتس نيم حجي.
The way things went, people were voting out of a sense of fear this election. And New Democrats do better when people are voting out of a sense of hope and optimism.
Yeah.
Well, you say you have the best candidates in the city, but unfortunately for your party, Blake Desjardins lost his seat to Carrie Diot in Edmonton-Griesbach. In terms of being the orange spot in Alberta at the moment, I mean, how do you represent the West when you go back to Ottawa when there is such strife within the National Party?
You know, in 2019,
كلهم يا إخواتي بزعوا نزوم حدش تخلطوا بزولهم نحدش الأسرع طلع كود دلي نحدش تكو سرعة طلع كوتا وانا نجار أمريكا هذا كو مسلسل لك سرعة إسكا نمبر 1 سرعة قدامي أبز السب سرعة كان نجار سرعي زخوني يكون سرعة طلع رهب تعرف سرعة جن تحرك أسبغاس تمرت تحرك هواي مكينات تجوزو سرعة جن وانا نجار so سرعة دخفت ليبرال government سيدرج 10 عامة مريح وزع الحج قاعد عندنا 4 عامة مريح جن أبساعد زيك عندي شجر كويندر دونالد ترامب شجر كله بدقة مالتي جي مسؤولي إخا أنت هم كفوترو أنت حدش بوليس تافين كوتسو جزا حجي حدش جزا كهان نسأل نير ماركارلي صبوا جزا عندي حرب بس حتهاني سو جزا خرايك ودلي because more جزا له access له التي process جزا حلو زلوا كأن ما نعرف تايديو حتسألك جزا كوي بس جزا تقول لكو متأخهم so تسفاس له أجهم.
Really interesting. Thank you very much for that. The CBC's Sam Sampson and Rosemary. Heather McPherson saying the future of the NDP is in this room. Pretty noteworthy when they have not right now. They don't have official party status, and the party's leader is in trouble in his own riding.
Yeah, and let me show you just that very thing. There you go. Jugmeet Singh continues to trail, continues to be in third place. That's where he's been this night in his riding of Burnaby Central. For the party. And it continues to be so. So we'll see whether Mr. Singh is even able to hang on to his own riding in Burnaby South. And so I'm going to go to Randall Garrison. I brought him out there. So we'll start with the good for you, Heather McPherson. A bit of a star MP for the NDP, frankly. She was reelected in her riding, but also a loss of Blake Desjardins. and Mr. Singh is in some trouble. What are you thinking tonight?
Well, it's obviously not a happy night for New Democrats.
Again, والله ثلاثة دقيقة لقاكم الله قال لكن حدش سوات حجر عادكم علىكم Liberal Party أنت عويتهم which means Mark Carney تعويتهم أنت قلنا جن أنت عن government يفتر majority رو minority زعبي يجي تمين لك that's why إذا قدرت أقوم لكم بقى حميتهم سان حدا لا Liberal Party ماتي لا Conservative Party قميتن حمسان قدرة حجم علو عود دبها قدرة عندي مسلكم majority دبها قدرة 207 كلتن قدرة so قديمو 207 كلتن قدرة بس صحيح majority يزول لهم مالتي so that's why Liberal government هجي majority متان كحز 207 كلتن قدرة وقول له block كيبقى عشران سنة لهم سلازي Liberal government مستمسرته حدتها تغير تقولوا حاجز block كيبقى لي which means minority government تمريضو مش block كيبقى حاجة جزوميم government خطرو you know قومي opposition كا conservative ما تقاوم تيمات كنت قاومتنا كندا تقاومتنا رينسر تقاومتنا كندا هي is Pierre Poilievre مالتي داركا Prime Minister كونسل النيري okay so نزي مثل anyway أبقى رسكياتنا
9 or 10 if not 12 New Democrats to raise those questions.
Do you think though that Mr. Singh should have earlier in the campaign, you know, we talked a lot about how Mr. Poilievre should have pivoted, and who knows if that's actually the truth given where the numbers are, but I wonder whether Mr. Singh should have pivoted earlier, whether he should have not suggested that there was some world in which he was going to be prime minister and should have pushed more for the balance of power and protecting the things that you're talking about.
Well, it's a very short campaign we've been in, and so pivoting earlier means a week earlier, maybe?
Well, no, starting from that point, maybe.
But from the beginning, we had no idea what was going on because of Trump. We had no idea what kind of campaign it was going to be. We had no idea that this big shift would be, whether it would be lasting for Carney or whether it was a bump. Yeah. So for the first couple of weeks of the campaign, nobody really knew what was happening. And once we did know what was happening, he did shift very quickly.
Right. What happens if he loses a seat?
Well, it's always hard for leaders to lose their seat if they want to stay on as leader. And you know, I'm ultra honest. I don't know whether he'll want to stay on as leader if he loses his seat. It's going to be very difficult.
دكات عمد الله تامس لكم. Pierre Poilievre أبكتهم وأي تعودنا له. Pierre Poilievre أتينا conservative party مرح جل بساعة تزيد. لازم أنت data مرت أبناتو riding. مرح أقول إنه conservative قتل كلمة. نظام تقدوس مالتي. مرح أقول إنه قتل تزيك يقول خا. دان وجه الله ما تخلك مرت. So أسي دكات عمد الله.
We'll live to see tomorrow where we actually end up.
Okay. Thank you, Randall Garrison. Appreciate you being forthcoming.
أتمنى مولو مرسي ولا صباحون خون اللي كم زلنا. أنت حركت شلو مالتي وأنت مولو مرسي رخنا. Again حساب حجة لو تيجات ماله. That's why نرزلنا.
Sean Fraser, he did manage to win in the riding of Central Nova. Sean Fraser, congratulations.
Sean Fraser. حلفنا بيروناي housing ستاينر minister
anyway, Rosemary.
ده حرق design جيرون حجقة تمريض أبكتهم ومالتي.
And spend time with your family worked out for you here. How are you feeling about that?
Look, I'm feeling really good about the path ahead. Obviously, it's an invigorating experience to be successful in an election, to have the privilege to represent your community in the House of Commons. My family's actually really excited. We were all together earlier this evening watching the results come in, and this is an incredible opportunity to continue our service.
Yeah, and I'm totally teasing you about that. What do you make of what the numbers are so far and the fact that this has been a two-party race throughout this election campaign, and that is reflected here tonight. And we don't know exactly how this is going to end, other than you are forming government.
Yeah, look, I'll reserve judgment on the final numbers that come in, but the results we're seeing tonight reflects my experience on the doorstep over the course of the last number of weeks. People were faced with a very clear choice. Who is best to represent Canada in defending Canada, standing up to the threat that we're seeing coming from south of the border? People have very different views as to the appropriateness of one party or another, but that's what elections are all about. More than any election I've been a part of, this was a very clear choice with a clear issue, and thankfully, locally and nationally, the voters have made the choice that I think was the right one.
Right, but still not. I realized that the bar, 3 months ago was let's just survive. But as the election went on, it seemed like the bar was let's try and get to a majority. Could still happen, I suppose, but I think it's getting increasingly less likely. A minority government, is that something that you think Liberals can deal with and work with going forward with Mr. Carney if that's where we end up?
Well, look, I anticipate, and you got to keep in mind that the future of the government is not up to political parties, but it's up to Canadians. The Canadian people are always right on the back end of an election, and if they decide to elect a minority or a majority, it's incumbent upon those of us who get elected to work across the aisle as much as possible to ensure that we implement the kinds of policies that are going to serve the Canadian people in the way the Canadian people see fit. If not, you may find ourselves back in an election. But in the meantime, I think we're going to have an opportunity to work in a cross-party.
ሓንቲ ነገር ክሕኪየኩም ካብ መፅሓና ብዚ ማለት እዩ ማይኖሪቲ ጋቨርንመንት ተመሪጹ ኣብ ዝኾነ ኹን እዋን እንተ ዳ ብሎክ ኬቤኳ ምስ ኮንሰርቫቲቭ ኮይኖም ንሕና ኣብ ልዕሊ እዚ ተመሪጹ ዘሎ መንግስቲ ኣይ ዓገብናን ኢሎም እንደገና ምርጫ ክትኣክል ካናዳ ትፍልልይ ንሱ እዩ ስለዚ እዚ ምርጫ እዚ እንተ ዳ ብሎክ ኬቤኳ እንደገና ምዝና ኣካይዳ ናይ ማርክ ካርኒ ምስ ናይ ሊበራል ጋቨርንመንት ዴቶ ሓጠሎም 150 ب20 ተደሚሮም 173 እዩ ይመጽእ ስለዚ ክልቲኦም ኮይኖም ኮም ቮት እንተዳ ምሪጾም ናብ ኢሌክሽን ክንኣጥፍልና እንደገና ማት ሓድሽ ፕራይም ሚኒስተር ንኽምረጽ ስለዚ ማይኖሪቲ እንተ ኮይኖም ከላይ ግዘቡን ናብ ምርጫ ክንኣጥፍ ንኽእልና እንደገና እንተዳ ዴቶ ሓጠሎም ማለት ናይ ማርክ ካርኒ ኣካይዳ ናይ ሓድሽ ፕራይም ሚኒስተር ትመጽእ ዘሎ that's why majority ሲትሒዞም ግን ዘጋጠመ የጋጠም ብዙሓት የምሰም ብዙሕ ሰብ ዘሎ ሓንቲ ከጋጥምኒ ሲት ፍልሊ ኣብ ማጆሪቲ ማይኖሪቲ ነዞም ተሓተትኩም ማለት
I had many opportunities to make friends on the other side of the aisle, including in the Conservative caucus, and we're going to have to leverage those relationships. Canadians do not want us to continually talk about what's wrong with the other party that we may be competing against. They want us to put our ideas on the table and work together to get things done. I heard that message loud and clear in my own community, and it's a lesson I'm going to take back to Ottawa going forward.
Okay, Sean Fraser, nice to see you. Congratulations again, and I'm sure we'll talk soon.
I'm sure. Thank you so much, Rosemary.
Okay, have a good evening. Appreciate it very much. All right, we're talking to some of the people who have clinched their seats today. If any Conservatives want to talk and you've won, happy to put you on as well. Just give us a call. Adrian, you've got some results.
Yeah, well, why don't we do that right now? Let's go to Bowmanville, Oshawa North. This is, if you have a look here, this is Jamil Jivani projected elected. This is a seat that the Conservatives have held by increasing numbers over the last few years. You know, it's interesting. The shorthand when people talk about Jamil Jivani is that he is very good friends with U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance. You know, would that make a difference for him, for better or for worse, at the polls? Not so far. He's done extremely well. He is headed back to Ottawa. And let's find out what this night is like for him, because I believe David Common is right there in Bowmanville, Oshawa North. And I think you do have a guest, David.
We do indeed, Adrian. And yes, this is, you know, there have been electoral boundary changes for this election, and this riding certainly among them. But much of it was former Conservative leader Aaron O'Toole's riding in the by-election following his resignation. It was Jamil Jivani who won that, and Jamil Jivani winning again tonight. Congratulations, first of all.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we have a great team here in Bowmanville, Oshawa North. Very excited and happy to bring home a victory.
I do want to ask you, Mr. Jivani, because you've just spoken to your supporters, a large group that's here at the pub here in Bowmanville.
ብዙሕ ምቅራብ ኣለዎ ምስ ጄዲ ፋንስ ካ ናይ ኣሜሪካ ቫይስ ፕሬዚደንት እዩ ስለዚ እቲ ናቱ ምቅራብ ክሕግዝ ዝኽእል እዩ ዝብል ርድኢት ኣለዎ
how you see that.
Yeah, well, look, Doug Ford just went through an election. I have differences of opinion with him. I don't like how he's managed healthcare or education, but out of respect, we didn't say anything. Federal party, we didn't get in his way. When it was our turn to run an election, he couldn't stay out of our business. Always getting his criticisms and all his opinions out, distracting our campaign, trying to make it about him, trying to position himself as some kind of political genius that we needed to be taking cues from.
Was it him specifically? Was it his campaign manager, Corey, tonight? Do you see Doug Ford as a problem for the federal party in the outcome of this race?
I see Doug Ford as a problem for Ontario and for Canada. I think he's not doing a great job in running this province, and now he's trying to exercise his influence over other levels of government, and it's not like this guy is doing anything particularly well.
I mean, you did used to work for him.
I did. I'm speaking from experience. I tried to fix problems in this province, and he kept getting in his way and all his goons around him all the time. They wouldn't make anything better, and now we're seeing him because this guy's a political genius because he beat Bonnie Crombie and Stephen Del Duca, and now we got to sit around getting advice from him? No. He has taken the provincial Conservative Party and turned it into something hollow, unprincipled, something that doesn't solve problems. He's glad-handing with Chrystia Freeland, having coffees and lattes with Mark Carney. And I'm sitting here saying we need to be fighting for change and something new and something different, not being a hype man to the Liberal Party.
Some would argue that the challenge within the federal Conservative movement is that there are these divisions, divisions that in some ways you're outlining tonight, and that it is the thing that stops or prevents, holds back the federal party from the majority government that it seeks. Do you see that as a possible outcome to some of the fractions and frictions that exist within the federal party?
There is a lot of unity from Conservatives across the board. Peter MacKay and Stephen Harper and Jason Kenney, James Moore, all sorts of people who've been part of our movement for a long time, united behind Pierre. There are opportunists like Doug Ford. And I think it's not about ideology or differences of beliefs. It is about some people believing our purpose as Conservatives is to be an alternative to what the Liberals offer. And then there are people like Doug Ford who are opportunists. And I reject that outright.
Do you have any leadership ambitions?
Look, we have a leader of our party right now. We're still waiting in for the final seat counts. I don't know what tomorrow holds. My focus, though, is on all the young people, all the parents, the moms, the dads who came to us and trusted us to offer an alternative, a brighter future. We're going to see that through. We're going to keep fighting. And when the next federal election comes around, Conservatives will earn the trust of more voters, and we will bring home a victory nationally.
My last question to you looks at the results. As we speak here right now, 160 for the Liberals, 151 for your Conservatives. This is a lot closer of a race than some had expected. Why do you think that is?
Well, look, I think a lot of people misunderstood just the frustration that Canadians felt. All these polls that showed Conservatives far below the Liberals, I think we're missing how many young people saw our party as the party of dreamers and hustlers and strivers and builders. That is our identity for young people, and we are going to continue offering them that vision for Canada. As we continue to see progress made, earning more trust, growing our party, getting more union support, police support, young families, working class families, I think we will see this.
عند خاطي حتى كونيز نبرة مالتيو أب بولن ترى ونيركم أب حالة مالتيو ولا سيتي فيديو صور نبر conservative party دارجا بستحت percentage كم نبرة liberal party تطلع على percentage كم نبرة جيرهم يوم يجتكو بونيرهم أنا كنت شكون أنت حكي سلوتي تريو لهم 250 حدا ناي conservative 260 ناي liberal.
So vague about his views. Congratulations to him. If Doug Ford is listening, maybe give us a call. He might have a few things to say. That was very interesting, Rosie.
It was. I mean, there was an interview that Politico did with Doug Ford that was published today. That was perhaps inspired what Jamil Jivani said there. It was very frank and aggressive about what the federal Conservatives are doing. Let's bring in the panel and get their response and reaction to that. I mean, if you wanted confirmation that there is a problem, a major rift between Ford Conservatives and Pierre Poilievre Conservatives, Jamil Jivani just showed you that.
It's like it was two different interviews. Like the last part of it about the strivers and the go get them, et cetera.
The hustlers.
That's the kind of, but that's a kind of a positive vision of the party. The first part where he was on the tirade about Ford shows you part of the problem. I mean, it reflects the duality of the result here. They did a lot better than people were expecting mid-campaign. That's right. So they've escaped with the skin of their teeth. But they blew a 25% lead, and I think you saw part of the reason why there. The failure to build bridges even within their own movement.
Yes.
And this kind of scabrous negativity. I mean, you know, people talk about, oh, well, it's only because the NDP vote collapsed. A big part of the reason the NDP vote collapsed was Pierre Poilievre's leadership and the specter that he presented to, at least to progressive voters. Yeah. When conservative leaders are scary, NDP voters are more likely to listen to the Liberal siren call of you have to vote with us.
Yeah, and the favorability for Pierre Poilievre never improved. In fact, I probably did the opposite through the polls, Chantal.
But if you're going to run possibly a fragile government, it's good news to hear this interview because you know the Premier of Ontario will continue to be working with you as the Liberal Prime Minister of Canada.
That's right.
And in the end, bottom line, once we get through this who knows when thing, the next order of business is going to have to be dealing with what's happening south of the border.
That's right.
And the one relationship that will really matter is that of the Premier of Ontario with the Premier of Canada in those circumstances.
Yes, yeah.
Having listened to that, you kind of feel relieved that these are not the people who will be knocking at Premier Ford's door.
Well, I mean, it does show that if it was a Pierre Poilievre Prime Minister with that kind of animosity between the biggest province in the country, I don't know how that would have worked to take on Donald Trump. I don't know. Maybe they would have been able to patch things up if they were going to form government. But
I mean, when there is no need to say things like this tonight.
And you
and
wonder
go on
whether
rounds.
you wonder whether he had authorization for this. I mean, Pierre Poilievre, as I say, they escaped with skin of teeth, but he should be a chastened leader at this point. He threw away a 25% lead, and it's because of things like that. And if he doesn't learn from this experience, then he's going to reap all he sows.
he still, though, I mean, if these numbers hold, the last vote was at 128. He's 150. He may hold the Liberals to a minority. I mean, that will protect his leadership potentially, right? Yeah.
The first question, will he be in the House of Commons?
Yes.
Because I keep looking at those results in Carlton, and I'm waiting for them to find the stack of votes that puts him back on top.
Yeah.
There are still lots of polls in Carlton that have not been counted.
But he has not led that race yet.
Oh, he is significantly behind. Yeah. It's not a close race at this point.
Yeah. Jason Kenney, we snuck Jason Kenney in there because I also heard Jamil Jivani say your name as someone who is a conservative that he likes and points to as someone who is able to bring people together. What did you make of that? And there is obviously a problem here between Ford conservatives and Poilievre conservatives, and I don't know if it matters, but there's some deep animosity.
Well, there are certainly some personal differences, and to state the obvious, I have a firm grasp of the obvious. By which I mean, I think this is actually much more personal than it is ideological or factional.
Okay.
Every party has certain issue factions and personality factions. In this case, there seem to be 2 or 3 qualities that have really ramped up what I think is an unnecessary.
كبرات خاطرتي كمزي تريوت صنحكم زي برجع 151 ناي كونسرفاتيف 160 ناي ليبرال بارتي ليبرال بارتي يوم سعرهم زلو ماجورتين ماينورتين I don't think لو ما عملت دوت سايم مثلا نتي ملسي but انت رامتيو اب صباح الساعة فيديو كزركو حي باتري بازغن ناي ليبرال بارتي مرحي مارك كارني برايم مينستر ناي كندا كون له ماجورتي ماينورتي حاجرنا رئينا مساي صنحكم كلهم سابري تيدوكم ذا فيديو تراي تخاطاتلو انا جن نفسي كابزك على
And you know what? The Ontario PC critique has been that Poilievre's team doesn't know how to win in Ontario. He's right now over 45% of the popular vote. Mr. Ford won 43% of the popular vote earlier this year. So the federal Conservative campaign is getting a better result, a larger total raw vote count, and a higher share of the popular vote. Yeah. That's nothing to sneeze at. And I think so a little bit of everybody has to put some water in their wine and put the best interests of the country first. Yeah. And maybe the common interests of partisan conservatives somewhere in there as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think if Pierre Poilievre had called Doug Ford right from the get-go, the same way that Mark Carney did, he went and had breakfast with him, it probably would have helped. Whether it matters at this stage, I don't know.
Well, remember, it's not just Poilievre versus Ford. It's Poilievre versus Tim Houston in Nova Scotia. Yeah. And it seemed like there were a series of candidates who looked like they could be perfectly acceptable and presentable candidates for the party who just didn't fit in with the Poilievre clique. Yeah. I mean, Mike DeJong in BC, why was he not allowed to be a candidate? So, it's one thing, you can have a tent that's too broad and you lose all definition and you don't stand for anything, but you can have a tent that's too narrow and you just wind up defeating yourself.
Okay, I want to go to Conservative Party headquarters, if we can. Maybe. Possibly.
much, Anne-Marie. Lots of things to keep our eyes on.
That's just a look inside the room where, yeah, that's what it looks like when you have not won an election and you're waiting to see more. Let's go to Kate McKenna, who's, I imagine, been talking to people and getting a sense of how people are feeling in that room tonight. Kate, yes, they haven't won, but it does look like they have improved over what they got in the last vote. But tell me what people are telling you.
Well, what your guest just mentioned about the federal Conservatives doing better in Ontario than the provincial Conservatives did, that's something that the campaign has been going around talking about. That's something that is very much being discussed in this room. And yes, they are losing. They're aware that they're losing. However, they're happy. Well, I wouldn't say they're happy, but they're encouraged by their gains that they've made. They're encouraged by the amount of popular vote that they're getting. But of course, one thing that's hanging in this room is that Pierre Poilievre has not won his seat yet. In fact, he appears to be trailing in his seat. We are hearing that he is set to talk in a few minutes, but they did play the Jamil Jivani interview here at the same time. Obviously, it was on the CBC broadcast, and there was a lot of applause in the room for the things that he was saying. There was a lot of hollering and cheers for the people in this room who feel that Doug Ford's interventions in this campaign were not helpful, and they did not advance the Conservative cause in this very competitive election. So this ongoing rift appears to still be taking place within this party, and we'll be watching to see how it manifests over the next few days.
Okay, Kate McKenna, thank you so much for that. I'm going to now go to Ian Hannah-Mansing, who's got some results. Ian.
Yeah, well, let's take a look at Greater Vancouver and see how the NDP are doing there in terms of seat change, first of all. So we'll put that up on the screen, I hope, or if we don't, then I will, yeah, there we go. So this is vote change in Greater Vancouver, and you see the Liberals are up. The Conservatives are up. This is a pattern we've seen in other parts of the country as well, and you can see that this is at the expense of the NDP. Now, hours ago, when we looked at New Brunswick, this kind of vote change didn't really affect seats at all, but in Greater Vancouver, it is affecting seats. Let's take a look, first of all, at Port Moody, Coquitlam. This was more or less a three-way race in 2021. This time around, the NDP has plummeted from having won this riding. Bonnie Zerillo is the incumbent MP. You can see she's not only in third place, she's in a distant third place, and it's put the Conservatives in first. Arguably, the progressive vote, the left of center vote, has been split just enough between the NDP and the Liberals to allow the Conservatives to come up through the middle. And take a look at this. New Westminster, Burnaby, Millardville. Peter Julian, one of the mainstays of the NDP for so many years. He's been the MP here since 2004, and he is in third place. And again, easy even for me to do the math between the Liberals and the NDP. If someone had been able to consolidate those numbers on the center left, that would easily win. But in both of those cases, Rosemary, at this point, arguably, it has allowed, once again, the Conservatives to come up through the middle. Now, those aren't elected yet, but it is interesting, and it helps explain why the numbers look the way they do, particularly in BC at this point in the evening.
Okay, thank you for that, Ian. I want to go back to Jason Kenney, if I can, just to ask you this question. Shortly, we're going to hear from Jugmeet Singh. That's the little box there at the bottom of your screen. So we're also going to bring in Randall Garrison in a moment so he can respond to some of what Mr. Singh is saying. But if Pierre Poilievre ends up with a bigger number of seats than the last vote, 149, 150, put aside whether he's going to win his riding, where he is still trailing, but put that aside. How does the Conservative Party view that? Does he have the ability to stay? What do you think is going to happen there? And then if you want to throw in the thing about the riding, I don't know whether this is real, but he hasn't led at all night.
Yeah, well, look, I can't comment on the riding. Sure. I will just say that I think Mr. Poilievre, if he decides to stay as leader and leader of the opposition, he will have overwhelming support to do so. I don't see any faction or group within the party egging for a new leadership. I think the party realizes changing leaders every 3 or 4 years is counterproductive. And I think, on the merits here, he, right now, 42% of the popular vote nationally. The last time the Conservatives achieved that was under Brian Mulroney 37 years ago in 1988. Growth in new cohorts of supporters in a broader Conservative coalition that includes younger voters than typical, apparently doing very well in communities of new Canadians. And one of the most interesting things, I talked earlier about the sort of blue-collar swing that we seem to be observing towards Conservatives. Conservatives are winning in Windsor, Tecumseh, Windsor West, one of the Sudbury seats. We almost went Hamilton. We're competitive in Hamilton Centre. I've never seen that. These are long-time traditional NDP. So the NDP swing was, as I know it's fashionable around here to refer to the progressive bloc. A lot of traditional NDP voters wouldn't regard themselves as on the left. They're for the little guy. Sure. And Pierre Poilievre has been fighting for the little guy. He's broadened the Conservative coalition in that way. And picked up apparently at least 30 seats. So, and finally, he has been, in my judgment, the most effective opposition leader in our lifetime. Some might say too effective, such an effective opposition leader that he became typecast as in that role.
Well, and he also got rid of the very things that were going to help him, Justin Trudeau and a carbon tax. I mean, that was his own success brought that to him as well.
More than that, look, I mean, I heard my friend Arif here dismissively referring to Mr. Poilievre's three-word slogans. Look, he created the issue matrix that has been dominating Canadian politics for the past 2 years around affordability, the cost of living, housing, immigration, much of it represented, yes, by the carbon tax. He's also taken some principled and courageous positions. I think he took on the Liberals on their class warfare baiting on the capital gains tax increase. I believe he's the only leader who in French and English pointedly opposed the Quebec Bill 21 law against religious symbols in Quebec. Did somebody else?
No, don't go there. No. He didn't. He actually has fudged whether he would intervene in the Supreme Court on it. So
I heard his clear opposition to it. So my point.
He says he's opposed to it, but he doesn't say what he would do about it.
I think he ran a substantive campaign. He set up the issue set. He helped to defenestrate Justin Trudeau. And he's got the best result for a Conservative leader since 1988.
Okay, and I take all those points, and they're excellent points, and I'm going to let Jugmeet Singh speak in a moment, except that wasn't the bar. The bar was 25 points ahead, and you were going to form government. And you're telling me no one in the party is going to be angry with him?
Oh, there's going to be a desire for sure for a retrospective. And I think any leader after this circumstance should show some humility, should take a step back. And I think the important thing is, does a leader have the ability to learn and to grow? I think we've seen him modify his tone, his approach, his issue focus over the past several months. I think that demonstrates such an ability. He'll have to demonstrate that to the party, but I don't see anybody gunning for his job.
Yeah, I'm not saying his leadership's in any trouble, but he needs to reflect on why he's not going to be prime minister tomorrow, because a large part of it was the leadership. The leader was the biggest liability for the party. The strategy that the party pursued, at least for the first part of the campaign, was clearly wrong. He bears responsibility for that. So he should clearly have to answer some questions to the party.
It's also very dangerous to take for granted for both the Liberals and the Conservatives that the NDP weakness in this election is something that will be permanent. On the contrary, I don't know what Mr. Singh is going to say, but at this point, it's not really hard to imagine that it could be stronger with a stronger leader than it has been over the past 3 elections.
Althea?
Well, the ridings that you mentioned are three-way races, that they're not, that the Conservatives got in through the middle because of the progressive vote splitting. But I get your point, especially in the 905, where I think Pierre Poilievre did a really good job, especially on the crime stuff. I think the reason that he's going to have trouble, whether or not he wants to stay, is the interview that we just saw with Jamil Jivani. That aggressive tone really does not sit well with a significant chunk of the caucus that has been reelected. And we will find out as soon as the first caucus meeting whether or not they decide to approve the Reform Acts, and the caucus gives itself the power to decide whether or not Pierre Poilievre stays. And I think that will be a way for them to negotiate, because I think there are things that they would like. One MP called it the end of the reign of terror. Basically, they want Jenny Byrne gone, And if the result is low enough, they will set conditions to say, you want to stay, well, these are the changes we want to see.
Okay, quickly, Mr. Kenney, because I'm going to go to Mr. Singh.
Yeah, I would say, look, I think there are legitimate questions around tone.
Yeah.
And I think, amongst other things, if he had made an effort to more clearly position to auditioning for the role of prime minister rather than opposition leader late last year, it could have been marginally helpful. I don't think it would have changed the fundamental structure of this election in the way things unfolded.
Thank you. Thank you, Jason Kenney. Let's go to Jugmeet Singh. He's there in his riding in British Columbia. I should tell you that right now, as things stand, Mr. Singh is well behind in his own riding. He is in third with 4,000 votes, the other two far ahead. So things not looking good for him in his own riding tonight. And as we've shown you there, the NDP not even official party status. Let's listen in live.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We're good. Thank you. Thank you. That was very nice of you, very sweet of you all. Thank you so much. You're gonna get me all choked up here, guys. Gotta keep it together here, folks. Thank you very much. The love is amazing. I appreciate y'all. Big thank you to Suzanne. She's been with us from the beginning. Huge thank you. Appreciate her so much. Thank you, thank you. And all of you in this room, you guys poured your heart into this. Thank you so much for everything you've done. You're amazing. We love you all. And I know in election parties, night parties across the country, people are gathered. I want to thank them all for all their hard work. They're amazing people gathered together across the country. I want to take a moment to congratulate Prime Minister Carney on his victory. He has an important job to do to represent all Canadians and to protect our country and its sovereignty from the threats of Donald Trump. Tonight and every night, all of us here, we're on Team Canada. We want Canada to thrive, and we're going to continue to fight for Canada. I want to congratulate all the other leaders on a hard-fought campaign. It's been the honor of my life to represent the people of Burnaby Central. Tonight they chose, thank you. Tonight they chose a new member of parliament, and I wish them well as they continue to work hard for this community. Obviously, I know this night is a disappointing night for New Democrats. We had really good candidates that lost tonight. I know how hard you worked. I spent time with you. You're amazing. I'm so sorry you're not going to be able to represent your communities. I know you're going to continue to fight for them. I know on how many doors you knocked, how many family dinners you missed, how many nights your kids went to bed without you there to tuck them in. I know it was a tough sacrifice, and I just want to thank, and we can get a round of applause to every single candidate that ran for us. Thank you. Yeah. Thank all those incredible candidates and their incredible teams, because no candidate can do without a team. The volunteers, the staff, thank you to all those candidates and their incredible staffs. One more time. Choosing to commit your life to politics obviously comes with some sacrifice, but we choose this life because of the chance to change the country we love for the better. We may lose sometimes, and those losses hurt, it's tough. But we are only defeated if we stop fighting. We're only defeated when we believe that those that tell us that we can never dream of a better Canada, a fairer Canada, a more compassionate Canada. I have met New Democrats from coast to coast to coast who will never back down, even when they're told that there's no room for them at the table. Yeah. we make room for everyone because we believe that there is enough wealth in Canada for all of us to live the life that we deserve. Honestly, I got to avoid making eye contact with certain people because then it's going to get too emotional up here. So I just made the mistake of doing that, so I'm going to look away now. You know who you are. Don't look at me again. Almost 8 years ago, I was elected the leader of this incredible party, this incredible movement. I've worked really hard to be worthy of this trust, to live up to the legacy of our movement. Hold on a sec here, guys. Thank you. One more sec. Tonight, I've been informed our party leader that I'll be stepping down as party leader as soon as an interim leader can be appointed. Now, I could not have done this incredible job without, here's a point, give me a second to break down a bit. I couldn't have done it without the incredible support of my wife, Carlton. She has been my rock. She's been my foundation. For the past couple of years, I've been regretting that I didn't thank her on the night of the last election. So this is my opportunity to make up for it. She has literally been my rock. I couldn't have done this without her. She's backed me up and supported me. She has made so many sacrifices. She convinced me that she's enjoyed them all, but I don't know. But she's amazing. I'm just so thankful. Thanks for being on this journey. I'm gonna give you a hug. Hold on. Also, I might break down this part because, and Anhad and Dani, my daughters, remind me of the future. God damn it, that we are fighting for. That's just because I get emotional anytime I talk about my kids. I'm very sappy when it comes to my daughters, so I get a little emotional. I've also been supported by my family, and I got to thank my parents who are here today. They're amazing. Love you both. My brother, I wouldn't have been on this journey without my brother. So big shout out to my brother, Carlton. And honestly, this may sound funny, but my in-laws, I literally couldn't have done this without my in-laws. They're amazing. Where are my in-laws? They're somewhere here. Wherever they are, they're here. I wanted to look at them and point at them too. Oh, there they are. Yeah, I couldn't have done it without them. Literally, if you're a parent, you know how important your parents are, and your in-laws too, it turns out. So huge thank you. They've supported us. They've kept me grounded, given us great advice. I'm so thankful to my family. You can't do this work without great people, and you can't do this without a great family supporting you. So thank you to my family. I'm spilling my water and everything. It's getting a little bit, I'm trying to be graceful here, folks. I also want to thank my NDP caucus. This is a team that together we brought historic change for people. We brought real change to the lives of Canadians. I know that people are concretely better off because of our work over the last 8 years, and no election result will ever diminish that. So thank you to my my caucus, honestly, I'm so thankful to them all. We did some incredible work together. Seriously, every one of you, thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I might break down this part too, forgive me if I do. I can only do this and we could only do this work because of a great staff. And y'all just poured your heart into me, into the work that we did. So it's a good thing that there's water here. This water is very strategically placed for me, so it's very lucky that I might need a couple more glasses, so just, if anyone can help me out on that, that'd be great. Y'all brought your talent, your heart to the fight every day. We treat each other with respect and dignity and with kindness, and I love y'all. All right. We're almost there, folks. I got a couple other things I really want to get off my chest here. One other thing is, nothing's too spicy. It's just good stuff. I often speak about something my mom taught me. It's the Sikh teaching of Chardi Kala. And this is something fundamental to who I am. And it means, the words break down. Chardi means rising and Kala means spirits. And it's something that it captures a big part of who I am. And it's the idea that in the fight for justice, in the fight for fairness, in the fight that we fight, we want to have optimism in the face of struggle. We want to have a defiant optimism. It's like this eternal resilience. And this is the spirit that I carry tonight. Obviously, I'm disappointed that we could not win more seats, but I'm not disappointed in our movement. I'm hopeful for our party. I know that we will always choose hope over fear and optimism over despair and unity over hate. New Democrats literally built this country. New Democrats built this country. We have built the best of Canada, and we aren't going anywhere. Thank you so much. Love you all. You're amazing. Merci infiniment. Appreciate it so much. Appreciate you all so much. Thank you. You're amazing. Love you all. Every one of you. You're amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, that is Jugmeet Singh conceding, first of all, his own riding of Burnaby South, where he continues to be in third place, and announcing that he will step down as leader as soon as a new interim leader can be chosen. He was the leader of the NDP since 2017. Marina von Stackelberg is in the room there. Marina, obviously a very emotional room, and I must say, a very gracious speech by Jugmeet Singh tonight.
Yeah, this was really the worst case scenario for the NDP. This idea that Jugmeet Singh would not be able to hold on to his own seat, that there would be severe losses for the party, which is how this is panning out. You know, throughout this campaign, one thing that we've heard from supporters and from his team was that a lot of progressive voters that would have voted for the NDP were scared. They were scared of a Trump. They were scared of Trump. They were scared of a Poilievre majority. And so they were going towards Mark Carney's Liberals. And, you know, the party tells me that they feel like if they would have had a bit more time to explain to people that this would cause vote splitting. This is what we've seen is several, you know, big name NDP MPs potentially or actually losing their seat because of vote splitting. The party clearly saw this was a potential issue. They actually started a whole campaign about it here in BC, saying vote for NDP to prevent Conservatives from getting seats. So obviously this is a huge loss for this party. One staffer I spoke to earlier today, we were talking about the potential outcome, said for her, it was something that no matter how it shook up, they had helped to get dental care. They had made dental care happen. And for them, that was something they were going to hold on to. That was something that the NDP pushed to with just 24 MPs in the House of Commons. But obviously, this leaves this party in really the worst situation. The last time they lost official party status was in the 90s. And this is so important for a political party. It allows you questions in the House of Commons. It allows you, you know, to be in committees, to get staff. And so where this party ends now is really going to be the question.
Okay, Marina von Stackelberg live there in British Columbia. Of course, I said Burnaby South. It's Burnaby Central is the riding where Jugmeet Singh has lost his own seat. Thank you, Marina. Appreciate that. I'm going to go to Randall Garrison there. I will say, if you're going to lose and have a devastating night and still act that gracious in your loss, that speaks to the humanity of these leaders and certainly of Mr. Singh. Speaking about the sacrifices people have made, he himself also has made, and now that he's stepping down. Are you surprised about the fact that he's leaving?
No, and I said just a few minutes ago, I guess, on the air, that it was too early to write this story, but I was pretty sure this is the story we would be writing. Yeah. I supported Jugmeet early on because of the kind of person he is and the compassion he shows to others, which he demonstrated in the speech, but also calling on Canadians to get behind the winner of this election to get us through these difficult times. An enormously difficult thing to do when you've lost.
Totally, yeah.
And so I give him high praise for that. I wasn't certain he would resign.
أرى إذا قد سمعت أنكم قديمكم يقريتها تنقص عشرة أنيها إذا سمعت أنكم Jugmeet Singh ناي NDP مرحز نبرة أتي his was نبرة كل جزء أبوتها خم جمرتها تمرت أبوته خمان يتمرت سلازي أبوته سيتمرت أبال ناي بارلمنت أي خونينيو أبا خلو ريزاين كجبري حدش مرحي مستمرت ناي NDP السوق مرحنا تقردي that's why كمسجن تصنيحه يغني ليس ترقفكمني قبل تصنيحه مالتي.
Priorities of the NDP will still be problems that the new parliament has to grapple with.
And not to take anything away from that legacy and the legacy of Mr. Singh, but we've come a long way from Jack Layton and official opposition to now, and I wonder why that is. I wonder and what you think the party has to do to get back to a place of growth where people don't see it as a protest vote or a vote to park, but as a real alternative, a viable party.
Well, I think, as I said earlier, I believe that this is a temporary setback for the NDP in terms of people aren't saying we reject what the NDP put in the window as an offer. They've just simply said we have a bigger crisis here. Right. And for this election, we are going to make a choice for a strong leader in the face of Trump. Yeah. And so I think that's what's happened. So can the NDP, come back from this? Yes, I think they can. There's always the danger when you shrink back that certain protest moments or groups or things will try to take control of the party and keep it away from the mainstream which leads to success, not just for the party, but for Canadians who believe in those values. And so I think that will be a challenge for the party in its reduced circumstances. Yeah. But I have no doubt that we'll meet that challenge and be able to move forward probably as soon as the next election, which may be very soon if this is indeed a minority government.
Randall Garrison, thank you for coming all the way from British Columbia to help us.
أبزاني شتي ما برخبكم. عندنا نمبر تشاسك نعطون خلينا زبل زربالو نسخة أنتاي زي تمرت زلوا government أب ساعات liberal government مالتي minority government تقولينه أبزخون ساعات بلوك كيبك وانتر عليتو حتى لو من liberal كايدا مس conservative كينهم election كبلو خليهم. دغنا مرچ خبلو خوليو ابت مرچ خليك كم سي حجد مورترو لسب كوم خكايد خيلي مالتي so the system free دولي كمني امريكا يكون
Pierre Poilievre's headquarters, the conservative headquarters. We are going to hear from him in just moments, and there he is with his wife Anna Poilievre, who has been by his side throughout this campaign, really a vital part of the campaign to try and get people's support and to show a more personal side of him.
Pierre Poilievre أجي قال محتجبري.
Carlton at this hour. Remember, unusual things going on in that riding because of the longest ballot campaign. There are 91 people on the ballot, but Pierre Poilievre has not led once in the course of this evening in his own riding, and the Liberal there, Bruce Banjoy, is ahead by more than 2,000 votes. So that is something to watch for sure. Not calling anything there, but not very encouraging for Mr. Poilievre tonight. Let's listen in.
Merci. Merci, chers Canadiens.
Dear Canadians.
Je vous aime aussi. I love you too. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's with profound gratitude that I stand before you today at the moment of this historic election. Because only in Canada could the story that Anna and I bring to the stage be possible. Adopted son of school teachers and a Venezuelan refugee, stand on this stage in front of our proud country, offering ourselves up to serve for the future, after millions of people have shown up and marked their X, spoken their voice, and exercised their democratic rights. We could not be more proud, we could not be more grateful for the opportunity the Canadians have given us. Speaking now of Anna, I want to take a moment to thank my incredible wife. She's been by my side. She's my rock. I love and cherish you and our little ones more than you'll ever know. And I could not have done any of this without you. Thank you so much.
ምስጋና ንሰበይቲ ይባሉ ትርእለኹም ብዘይባ ኣኸሲ ወን ሓንቲ ምገበርኩን ሳላኸ ፀግዐይኺ ይብላሎ ሰበይትኩም ከምዛገርኩም ተከ ኡፍ በልወን That's so nice.
Anybody from anywhere could achieve anything. That through hard work, you could get a great life. You could have a nice, affordable home on a safe street. My purpose in politics is and will continue to be to restore that promise. Thank you. To the candidates who ran under our banner as conservatives, to the volunteers who knocked on the doors, made phone calls, put up lawn signs, rallied at our events, donated their hard-earned money to our cause, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. To the millions of people who voted for the Conservative Party and put their hopes and dreams in our vision, thank you. It will be an honor to continue to fight for you and to be a champion of your cause as we go forward.
እዞም ኩልኩም ድመረጥኩም ምስጋና ይተቀበሉ ይብላሎ ኩልኩም ዞም ተሳተፍኩም ኣነ ሕጉስ እየ ዋላ እዚ ተዓወት እቲ ሓደ ተዓወት ኤርትራውያን ቮት ምግባርና ኣነ ሕጉስ እየ for the first time ኣብ ህይወተይ ቮት ስለዝገበርኩ ስለዚ ቮት ዝገበርኩም ምስጋና ይብጻሕኩም
It would be a great honor to continue to fight for you because it has been an honor to be your voice, to fight for conservative values, the values for which you voted, and it will be an honor to continue to try and restore the promise of Canada, that anyone who works hard can have a great life in an affordable home, in a safe community. That is our vision, and we will bring it home.
እዞም ተሓትሮ ኣለኹም እዝሪ ተመሪጹ ዘለኹም እዚ ኮነ ተመሪጹ እዚ ናይ ኮንሰርቫቲቭ መራሒ ፒየር ፖሊየቭር ተመሪጹ ዘሎ ማርክ ካርኒ ናይ ሊበራል መራሒ ኣብ ሰዓት እዚ ከዓ ሊበራልስ 163 ሲት ሒዞም ኣለዉ ኮንሰርቫቲቭ 148 ሴዳ ሒዞም ኣለዉ በሓፂሩ ማይኖሪቲ ጋቨርንመንት መርሕ ኣሎ ካናዳ 163 ሊበራል 148 ኮንሰርቫቲቭ 23 ብሎክ ይበኳ Shomonte NDP had a green. NDP green in Darga alone.
That said, we are cognizant of the fact that we didn't quite get over the finish line yet. We know that change is needed, but change is hard to come by. It takes time. It takes work. And that's why we have to learn the lessons of tonight so that we can have an even better result the next time the Canadians decide the future for the country. Canadians have opted for a razor-thin minority government, a virtual tie in the vote count. So I would like to congratulate Prime Minister Carney on leading this minority government. We'll have plenty of opportunity to debate and disagree, but tonight we come together as Canadians. We will do our job. Yes, we will do our job to hold the government to account. But first, We congratulate people from all political backgrounds on participating in the democratic process. And as I said, while we will do our constitutional duty of holding government to account and proposing better alternatives, we will always put Canada first as we stare down tariffs and other irresponsible threats from President Trump. Conservatives will work with the Prime Minister and all parties with the common goal of defending Canada's interests and getting a new trade deal that puts these tariffs behind us while protecting our sovereignty and the Canadian people.
ዋላ እኳ ምስ ማርክ ካርኒ ተወዳደርቲ ከም ዝነበሩ ኣብ ሰዓት እዚ ግን እንቋ ሓጎሰካ ማርክ ካርኒ ተመሪጽካ እዩ ዝብሎ ዘሎ
My caucus, my members of the Conservative staff and others who've helped reshape the entire political landscape in this country. Conservatives have achieved major breakthroughs tonight. We brought in record support from blue-collar and unionized workers, youth, new Canadians. We gave voices to countless people across this country who've been left out and left behind for far too long. We won the big debates of our time on the carbon tax, on inflation, on housing, on the drug crisis, on crime. Conservatives have been leading the debate, and we will continue to put forward the best arguments to improve the lives of our people right across this country. But we will not stop there. Every single day, our Conservative caucus and I will be holding the government to account on behalf of the millions of Canadians who believed in the message of change. En tant que parti,
as a party, we have definitely expanded our support, and every single day the Conservative caucus and myself will be working hard in Ottawa to force the government to account on behalf of millions of Canadians who decided to vote for real change. I had the honor of crisscrossing this country to speak to thousands of people who shared their concerns, their suffering, their despair with me.
Took precious time out of their day to tell me about their struggles, their pain, their fears, but also their hopes and dreams. Welders and waitresses, farmers and factory workers, seniors.
هاي بحيث تبقى كم يمسلكم كم تقدم حجز نبر جاستن ترودو مرحا خلو minority government نيرو which means زباز حسيت أحازون نيرو بز مخنيات كا زغونه ቢል ክሓልፍ ከሎ ክትዕ ይካየድሞ ኣብ ትክትዕ ኮንሰርቫቲቭን ኤንዲፒን ብዝወሰንዎ እቲ ውሳኔ ይሓልፍ ነይሩ ምክንያቱ ብዙሕ ናምበር ኣይነበሮምን ሊበራል ጋቨርንመንት 172 ሲት ክትሕዝ ኣለካ ማጆሪቲ ክትከውን ልክዕ ተመያ ክትከውን ሕጂ ከዓ እንደገና ግን ፒየር ፖሊየቭ ኣብ ከተምኡ ከመን ኣይተዓወትን ኣሎ ብሰዓት ስለዚ እንተ ኣብ ከተምኡ ክዕወት ዘይከኣለ ከዓ ጠቅላላ ከም አባል ፓርላመንት ምን ቅጽል አይከልኒ ሕጂ ክንሪኤና ግን ጌናት ቮት ይመጽእ ዘሎ ናይ ዛዓደ ግን ፕራይም ሚኒስተር ናይ ካናዳ ግን ማርክ ካርኒ ኮይኑ ኦሬዲ ናርባት ሕተረለኩም ሰዓተለኩም
into parliament. We will not forget the people for whom we work and for whom we fight every day. Now I know that some of you might be disappointed that change did not get over the finish line tonight. Change takes time. Most of all, it requires that we never give up because our people and our country are worth fighting for. Je vous ai entendu et j'ai apporté vos histoires avec moi tout au long de cette campagne.
I carried your stories with me throughout this campaign, and your stories will remain with me as I fight with my Conservative team to defend and to advance your interests. To those who desperately need change, I know that you're disappointed. Change is difficult and it takes time, particularly because we must now never stop. The people of Canada deserve that we continue to fight for them.
Who voted for other parties. And so, my message tonight, for the single mother working 2 jobs but still has an empty fridge and an empty bank account, for the young people, despair at never on fixed incomes whose savings are eroded by inflation and no longer feel safe in their local neighborhood parks, for those who are now living in fear and terror because of crime, for those worried about losing their jobs because of unacceptable tariffs from the United States of America, for all of those who feel left behind and forgotten, my message is one of hope. Change will take time, but we will fight for that change, and we will deliver that change, and we will never give up on fighting for the great Canadian promise that anyone from anywhere can achieve anything, that hard work gets you a great life in a beautiful house on a safe street protected by our brave troops under our proud flag. Canada first, Canada always. Let's bring it home. Thank you very much, Canada. Merci beaucoup, Canada.
Yeah, we fight for what's right. We're wild and we're free from the mountain.
Okay, كبرات تخاتلتي كم درعهم ويناي كونسرفاتيف بارتي مرحي بيير بولييف قالوا اسمع له مساي صنحكم ازيد مسكنكم ካብ ሕጂ ነው ቀን ሙጻኩም ሰብስክራይብ ገርኩም ክትኮዱ ተትና ይሓትት ያ ማርክ ካርኒ ፕራይም ሚኒስተር ናይ ካናዳ ኮይኒዩ ብ ማይኖሪቲ ገቨርንመንት ማለት እዩ ካብ ጽባሕ ብስፍሕ ዝበለ ሁሉ ዜና 50